Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Hello, Maverick family. Good to have everybody back tonight. Racism. In San Francisco, they're looking at reparations to the tune of up to $5 million per person who is deemed eligible. It isn't clear how many people that might include, but it's controversial, and we'll talk about it a little bit tonight. There is also more from the Prime Minister in Canada on that special rapporteur who will be looking at foreign interference into Canadian elections. I guess he's getting close to deciding who he would like to have take a look at that, and we'll have to see if that actually leads to any kind of public inquiry or investigation, although the RCMP is already looking into it. And it looks like the Prime Minister is under increasing pressure. What else are we looking at tonight? Joe Biden, gun control, new executive order, and vinyl records are now actually outselling CDs. I never thought that would happen. But here we are in 2023, turning the clock back. Who says you can't get things back from the past? So we'll take a look at that too. A whole lot of other news on tap for you tonight as well. And we'll dig into all of it when we come back right after this short break. Don't go away.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So, first up tonight, I just wanted to mention that the Justice Department and the Securities and Exchange Commission is probing the collapse of SVB Bank. So this is a new development today. The Justice Department and the SEC probing the problems with Silicon Valley Bank. And so each of those investigative bodies are acting separately, and the investigations are in their preliminary stages, but this is very significant. And the impact of the SVB collapse has still not been fully felt. We're going to be seeing reverberations from this in the days and even the weeks ahead. So something like this to happen is not really that unusual because so much money is involved. They want to be looking at what the executives at SVB were doing in the time leading up to the collapse of the bank, and we've seen that some of those executives actually sold off substantial amounts of their stocks in the company, in the bank. And the Justice Department and the SEC have so far not commented on these reports of their probes into the activities and at the bank and the subsequent collapse. This was first reported by the Wall Street Journal. So on Sunday, SEC Chair Gary Gensler said that his agency was focused on monitoring for market stability and identifying and prosecuting any form of misconduct that might threaten investors, capital formation, or the markets more broadly. And he said at that time that without speaking to any individual entity or person, we will investigate and bring enforcement actions if we find violations of the federal securities laws. Also, no comment so far from SVB Chief Executive Officer Greg Becker on this. SVB, as you know, the 16th largest bank in the country, it collapsed on Friday and was taken over by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation because there was a run on the bank. Customers withdrew $42 billion in deposits by the end of the day last Thursday. And with that kind of pressure on the bank, well, no bank can really survive that kind of run when that percentage of their cash reserves are tapped. So now, of course, the federal government, Joe Biden, vowing that all depositors will be protected, trying to shore up confidence in the banking system in the U.S. in general. And in Canada, SVB's branches or offices here also seized by the Canadian government, with Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland taking control of those. But the impact from this still being felt today on the stock markets. And it is not clear even now if stability can fully be restored to the system or if this will result in much wider impacts to the economy. And I think we are looking at exactly that, much wider impacts on the economy. I think to a large degree that's inevitable. So investigations underway, but I don't think you'll find the real answers. And this is my opinion at this point, but I don't think the real answers are there in those investigations. This is a witch hunt in a way. Now, some of those executives clearly need to be held accountable for their actions, for their mismanagement of the bank. But as I pointed out last night, those guys were really doing what they were told to do, what the market conditions were dictating to them, what government was dictating to them, and even some of their investors, honestly, because SVB was woke, politically correct. Their hiring practices, woke. Their approach to everything, woke. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at with that tonight, and a lot more to come on it. And I think it's all tied into just an overall mismanagement of the economy, the macroeconomic policies of the federal governments, the globalist agenda, all of it coming to an end. And what we're really seeing here is the end stages of our Western economic system, which is based on debt. So a lot more to come on that front. Hold on to your wallets. Prepare yourself. Don't wait. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. That's my advice. Not that I'm telling you how to invest your money or exactly what to do. Get your investment advice from a professional financial advisor. That's not me. I'm not here to give people advice. I'm just here to comment and provide the news. And that's what I'm doing tonight. But I'm going to do my best to prepare for the worst. Also tonight, Joe Biden on gun control, a new executive order. Let's pick up his speech now. Here we go.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you. Please have a seat if you have one. Good afternoon. Saturday, January 21st, 2023, Lunar New Year. A time to enjoy. A ballroom dance studio, place of happiness, friendship, and belonging. People across backgrounds and generations celebrating their cultural roots and bonding through ballroom song and dance. Place of refuge where immigrants have lived for years. Supported new immigrants who just arrived, becoming not just friends, but family. But as we all saw, a day of festivity and light turned into a day of fear and darkness. A holiday of hope and possibilities marked by horror and pain. Vibrant dances and music replaced by vigils and memorials. 11 souls taken, 9 injured. Private mourning made public. That sense of safety shattered. Survivors will always carry the physical and emotional scars. Families left behind who will never be the same. One of the worst mass shootings in California history. A tragedy that has pierced the soul of this nation here in Monterey Park, the San Gabriel Valley, the heart of the Asian American community. My dear friend Judy Chu, former mayor of Monterey Park, your congresswoman and chair of Congressional Asian Pacific Caucus. Senator Alex Padilla, champion for this community, the entire state. My good friend, Supervisor Hilda Solis, and all elected officials, law enforcement, first responders, faith leaders, community members, all here today. You've shown up for this community, and I know you always will. To the families of victims who spend time, I get a chance to speak with today, and whom Vice President Harris spent time with a few weeks ago. I'm here on behalf of the American people to mourn with you, to pray with you, to let you know you are loved and not alone. Every case is different, but I know what it's like. I know what it's like to get that call. I know what it's like to be told. I know what it's like to lose a loved one so suddenly. It's like losing a piece of your soul. It's like a black hole in your chest you feel like you're being sucked into. Suffocating, hardly able to breathe. The anger, the pain, the depths of the loss so profound it's hard to explain. The suddenness tends to magnify the grief. As time passes, the shock and numbness slowly make way for the sobering reality of their absence. An empty chair at the dinner table, the birthdays, the anniversaries, the holidays, without them. Everyday things, small things, the detail you miss the most, the scent when you open that closet door, the park you go by that you used to stroll in, the morning tea you shared together, the bend of his smile, the perfect pitch of her laugh. As Judy shared with me, this is a tight-knit community with intergenerational households and deep reverence and respect for its elders. Community that's opened its heart and its homes to friends and neighbors and stood strong throughout the pandemic as anti-Asian hate crimes rose. Community that, in the face of horrific tragedy, has become a symbol of hope and resilience, pushing forward together, healing together, people from all faiths and backgrounds rallying to show their love and support, raising money for funeral costs and memorials, providing counseling and translation services to the victims' families, providing and proving that even with heavy hearts, we have unbreakable spirits. As a nation, remember them, immigrants from China, the Philippines, Vietnam, Taiwan, all of whom found a home in America. Mr. Ma, age 72, a pillar of the community, a beloved manager and dance instructor at Star Ballroom. He walked patrons to their cars at night, helped new immigrants find jobs. His children and grandchildren will carry on his legacy in the spirit of one of his favorite Chinese proverbs: cherish the people in front of you. Cherish the people in front of you. And Igao, 72, Mr. Nice, for his kindness, his positivity, his infectious smile, a free spirit always ready to lend a helping hand. He died shielding his dance partner. Showed you on you, 57, devoted mom, wife, sister, woman of faith, always there to help others, bringing food and newspapers to family members who had trouble walking. Always working tirelessly with her husband to build a future for their 3 children. Nancy Jeanne, 62, known as Sister Sunshine. She loved to play cards, piano, and the weekly volleyball game. Always sharing her homegrown plants and vegetables with neighbors and friends. Dedicated mom, married nearly 40 years. Husband and wife who were always together, even in their last dance. Valentino Alvaro, 68 years old. Servant of God. Life of the party. Storyteller who made the whole room laugh. A man devoted to his children and his grandchildren. May Manon, 65, the bedrock of her family and friends. Eternal optimist, avid dancer who'd visit the studio every weekend, often leaving snacks behind for her classmates. She radiated positive energy through her laughter, her kind words, and her smile. Moy Dayan, 67, refugee, community builder, cherished friend, known for her kindness, her sweetness, her generosity. His family's own dance studio, just 2 miles away, pointing a gun at him for heroism. We remember and mourn today took awareness campaigns about the red flag orders for all. And more financial assistance to the family losing the sole breadwinner. I led that fight in. There's more in this executive order. I'm determined. Once again, more in this executive order, but I'm not stopping there.
Maverick
will help
News.
folks recover and build after
The world is watching.
And my microphone is muted. My apologies. I have to tell you, folks, I'm not fully prepared to do this broadcast tonight because my house and my studio have been completely torn apart. We had a plumbing problem here, and everything got flooded. And there've been workmen in here, and it's a construction zone. And they've just stopped working, and I have not been able to do very much. So I'm doing my very best for you tonight to just try and get through this. I do have stuff lined up, and we're going to talk about these things, but I wanted to pull out of that Biden speech because what he's really doing there is putting a human spin on his story and his legislation. It's a technique that's used to generate an emotional response to what he's trying to achieve and what he's trying to sell to you, which is more gun control. And so tonight, what he has done, today, he has signed an executive order which increases background checks to buy guns, and he thinks to promote more secure firearm storage and ensure that police and law enforcement agencies are better able to access and make use of bipartisan gun control, a gun control law, which was enacted last summer. So he went to Los Angeles, to that community where you see him speaking, and he's talking about a mass shooting there, which involved some 20 people, and 11 people were killed in that incident. And he is telling you about the victims, because each of them being a human being, an individual, he wants you to be able to relate to that so that you understand the human element of this story. We'll go back to a little bit more of his speech now.
That way, policymakers can strengthen laws to crack down on those illegal gun dealers, and the public can avoid purchasing from them. Third, the executive order improves federal coordination to support victims, survivors, and their families and communities affected by mass shootings. The same way FEMA responds to your natural disaster in California and all around the nation, and it will help folks recover and build after folks recover and build after wildfires and superstorms and droughts. For example, we need to provide more mental health support and grief and trauma, and more financial assistance when a family loses the sole breadwinner or when a small business shuts down due to a lengthy shooting investigation. There's more in this executive order, but I'm not stopping there. Last week, I laid out in my budget that we invest more in safer communities and expand access to mental health services for those affected by gun violence. Congressional Republicans should pass my budget instead of calling for cuts in these services or defunding the police or abolishing the FBI, as we hear from our MAGA Republican friends. But let's be clear. None of this absolves Congress the responsibility from the responsibility of acting to pass universal background checks, eliminate gun manufacturers' immunity from liability. And I'm determined, once again, to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. I led that fight to ban them in 1994. The 10 years that law was in place, mass shootings went down. Our Republican friends let it expire 10 years later. And mass shootings tripled since then, tripled. So let's finish the job. Ban assault weapons, ban them again, do it now. Enough, do something big. Folks, let me close with this. Scripture says, the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. A lot of us have been there. As you gather here today, I know your hearts are broken, but I know your spirits are strong. And as you remember and heal, I know the light of your loved one is once again going to lead you forward. It takes time. I tell everyone, at least it did with me, it takes time. But I promise you, the day will come when the memory of your loved one brings a smile to your lips before it brings a tear to your eye. Tear will never fully go away. But when you had that smile first remembrance, that's when you know. That's when you know you're going to make it. You're going to know you're going to make it. My prayer for all of you is that day will come sooner than later, but I promise you, it will come. God bless you all. I admire you so damn much.
Okay, so that's Joe Biden on gun control and talking about mental health services. And we are dealing with a similar issue up here in Canada, and specifically in Quebec tonight, where earlier today, a suspect, and I'll bring this up for you, who allegedly was driving a pickup truck and ran over pedestrians, appeared in court. 38-year-old Steve Gagnon, and there's an image of him right there, was in court earlier today, facing charges in relation to the incident, and police are saying that it was a deliberate act. So he appeared in court dressed like this in a t-shirt with glasses. With a crowd gathered outside, heckling him, calling him rotten. So the police investigation is continuing, and we have a clip coming up from the Premier of Quebec, who also, like Biden, addressed the issue of mental health services. So let's go to that clip now of the Premier in Quebec, who addresses this issue of mental health services in the wake of 6 people being run down by that pickup truck in Quebec. Another tragedy. What the actual motivations were behind this is not clear.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's happening everywhere in the world. We've increased the resources for mental health in the last few years, but we'll have to do more. We'll have to do more publicity also to make sure that people they get help, and also that if they see somebody around them who's at risk, that they take some action.
But if we don't really know why this is happening, there's not much we can do.
Yeah, but there'll be an inquiry, there'll be an analysis, and we're already working on trying to be better helping mental health problems.
Beyond the psychosocial services for this community, I mean, you mentioned how special this is, being such a small community where everyone knows each other. What else is being done to ensure that everyone's okay?
But I think that you have physical challenges. So were 11 people, unfortunately 2 dead. Some were transferred to Quebec City hospitals. We made sure that we had all the personnel. Psychological help also is given. Police are also trying to see exactly what happened, because people said that, hey, how can you have at 3 p.m. 10 people all together. The answer is that they were not all together. The guy went to hit many of them. So how did it happen? What was the information about this guy before this happened? So that's the kind of information we're working on.
In terms of mental health services, Mr. Premier, you mentioned we have to do more. Some members of the opposition said we could even go as far as doing a parliamentary commission looking into mental health services and what's needed in Quebec. Is that something that you'd be open to doing?
But I'm open to constructive suggestions. But right now, one of the big challenges we have is to find more psychological people, trained ones. And it takes many years to train them. And I think there's no magic solution. So I don't think that a commission would find concrete solutions. And if they have concrete proposals, I would like to hear them.
Just a word on the SAAQ, please, in English.
SAQ, but I think that clearly there was a bad planning. You cannot close offices for 3 weeks and expect that when you reopen them, that everything will be fine.
So that's the Premier, Francois Legault, in Quebec, addressing questions about the incident involving that truck driver where 2 people were killed, 9 others injured, 11 in total. And mental health being addressed as a paramount issue. We've seen incidents like this in other places, including in London, Ontario, but there they automatically went to racially motivated because of the nature of that particular incident and the circumstances surrounding that. But in this case, they're handling it differently. The focus seems to be different. We'll see where it all leads. So, what else do we have for you tonight? Well, we're going to go to a report from Patrick Lancaster, who has this special report from Donetsk, where the fighting has intensified in the Ukraine conflict. We're just going to let a little bit of this roll because Patrick is doing incredible work there, and I'd just like to highlight what he is reporting on tonight.
Son of a bitch. Oh, we can hear the shrapnel coming down now. Oh, there's the smoke. Obviously, that's incoming shelling from Ukrainian positions in Mariinka here on Alexandrovka, landing very close to us. Oh, there's another one. I'm Patrick Lancaster, and right now we are in the Kievsky district of Donetsk, and you can see behind me there was not long ago an artillery attack here on this school number 58. Thank God there was no children here because the Donetsk People's Republic and Russian authorities have for the last year done distance learning to keep their children out of harm's way, because virtually every school has been hit by shelling in most areas of Donetsk and the surrounding areas. Now, we've been here before when Ukraine has opened fire on this exact school. We've shown you this in the past. It's happened several times. Unfortunately, today, 2 workers here were injured. Right now, we're going to have talk to some of the employees of the school and see what they have to say and see what the situation really is on the ground.
Оно все 4 этажа задействовано.
Да?
Да.
И so 2 прилет был, да?
2 прилета
И
было.
именно где они был?
Они были в воздухе. Вот здесь мы не видели, мы услышали.
Ага. Уже представиться себя.
Я директор школы номер 58 Киевского района Тенинчева Ольга Асеновна.
Что произошло тут сегодня?
Сегодня в 10:20 произошел разрыв снаряда фасада школы. Пострадали люди, учитель начальных классов и техработник. С тяжелыми травмами были госпитализированы в травму. Сейчас им оказывается первая помощь.
И кто стреляет на школу?
Ну, кто стреляет? Мы знаем, кто стреляет. Стреляют украинские войска
И
по гражданским объектам, по школам, по детям, по садам, по жилым домам. Здесь наш поселок прифронтовой. Никаких войск, никакой армии нет. Есть пожилые люди, родители с детьми, мы учителя.
может быть, украинский подумал тут военные или это военные объекты?
Ну, это ж не вчера произошло о чем-то думать. Их не думают, а знают. Все прекрасно знают, что где находится. Я думаю, их оборудование в виде коптеров все снимают, все показывают, и люди четко понимают.
Четко понимаю, это-
И техника настолько на сегодняшний день современна, что четко по локации понимают, куда бьют. Вы сами сейчас обошли и видите, вокруг нет ни одного военного объекта, нет никакой военной техники, нет никаких военных. Есть дома жилые, школа, сад вот тут за спиной.
Почему это? Как вы думаете, почему украинские стреляют на школу? Как я понимаю, это не первый раз.
Нет, эту школу мы восстанавливали, первый обстрел был в 2014 году. Там разрушения были более значительные, попадания в крышу, стены были разрушены, то есть разрушений было более чем. К счастью, никто из людей не пострадал, а на сегодняшний день получилось вот так. Почему стреляют? Я думаю, уже в агонии люди бьют, чтобы хоть как-то нам сделать еще больнее. Делают больно и еще больнее. Но мы в своем городе, на своей земле, со своими детьми, со своими корнями мы выстоим. И мы победим. Как бы это кому-то не хотелось.
И, наверное, вы знаю, США, Европа, все западные страны дают Украине много техник, много оружия и деньги. Что вы могу сказать за это?
Мы не понимаем, зачем это делается. Вот честно, мы гражданские люди, мы не понимаем, для чего это делается. Кому это выгодно уничтожать просто народ. Народ просто уничтожают.
И вообще, почему это война сейчас? Почему эта война 9 лет здесь уже?
Наверное, тот, кто ее начал с Соединенных Штатов Европы, им лучше знать. Я думаю, скорее бизнес, ничего личного. Борьба за территории, борьба за недра, борьба за землю. А люди никому не нужны. Людей нужно до последнего украинца, так ставят вопрос, воевать. Вот сейчас и бьются до последнего. Вот когда всех добьют, ну как-то так.
США и Европа, они сказали, это все русские агрессии. И это потому, что война. Все виновата Россия и Россия агрессия.
Россия защищает нас и свои земли, наши земли. Россия нас защищает. И мы на сегодняшний день часть этой России, и мы гордимся этим. Мы были этой Россией и есть эта Россия. И тот, кто хочет нас уничтожить, у них свои интересы. А у нас интересы защитить свой народ и свои земли, и своих детей. Когда нам задают вопрос, почему мы до сих пор не уехали, потому что у нас тут дети, за которых мы в ответе. Мы их учим, воспитываем, охраняем. А выехать очень непросто. Выехать. Куда выехать? Бросить все? Стариков бросить, родителей.
And again, my mic is muted. We're just going to move along to another clip from another journalist, another woman in Ukraine, being asked questions about the war. And it's really her It's what she doesn't say that is most revealing. Just to pull this up, and I just came across this overnight, and I thought it was very telling.
Не знаю. Єдність українців. Наскільки важливо зараз, на вашу думку?
She's Ukrainian.
Почему украинцы? Вообще всего мира за мир. Чтобы были добрые люди, доброта.
Просто у нас же зараз війна йде, і нам потрібно всім єднатися, щоб вже побідіти. Що ви думаєте?
Ничего я не думаю. Я вне политики.
А, так війна це політика, так?
А?
Війна це політика, так?
Политика, конечно. Политика.
Політика якої держави?
Всех. И Америки, и Украины, и России.
Так, а хто агресор? А хто агресор тоді? Хто війну почав?
Украина.
Україна розпочала війну?
Да.
А проти кого вона
В
розпочала
2014
війну?
году против своих людей.
Україна сама на себе напала, так?
Да? Но на Донбассе чьи люди? Ну, чьи люди на Донбассе?
А якими танками тоді Україна напала сама на себе? Російськими, можливо?
Американскими.
Американськими. А ви ждете русский мир, так я поняла?
А при чем русский мир? Русский мир. При чем тут?
Окей, а Тростянець хто у цьому році окупував?
Я вам сказала, что я вне политики.
Got the idea? Fear. You can see the fear in her eyes just being asked about that. And then bravely stating her position, but still trying to stay arm's length from the issue because she knows the consequences for expressing her opinion on politics and the war could get her into trouble in her own country. Free speech doesn't look like they have it there. Not for her, not for that woman. Don't go away. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
So here's some irony. Justin Trudeau at a tire factory out on the East Coast making an announcement where he's saying they support manufacturing, while at the same time talking about the green economy. You know what they make tires out of? Oil. Let's pick up his speech here.
Is grounded in those things because every jurisdiction would be willing to invest to draw in a larger plant and more jobs. You are the competitive advantage that Canada has. The quality of the work that is done here and in plants like it across the country is the one thing that continues to be the strongest selling point as we're drawing in investments from around the world to come to Canada to build the solutions that not just Canada, but the world is going to need for the future. And I've been to a lot of plants across this country, and Rita is very and rightly proud of you, as
This
everyone
is Bridgewater,
is.
Nova Scotia, by the way.
Very rarely have I seen the level of almost awe in the quality and the caliber of work, of creativity, of innovation done here.
A $300 million
that is,
investment.
for me, exactly where Canada wants to be as we remain competitive in the coming years. So thank you for everything you've done over the past 50 years. I obviously want to thank Andrew, the CEO of Michelin Canada, Rita here at the plant, and everyone for having us here at this Michelin plant in Bridgewater. Happy to be here with Sean, Francois Philippe, Cody, Alina, and Darren. And it's really good to be here with Premier Houston. We have worked together on so many files about creating opportunities and growth for Nova Scotians, building a greener economy that continues to deliver great jobs for people as we continue to welcome in people from across the country and around the world who just love it here in Nova Scotia and want to keep living here and raise their families here. It's always great to work with you, Tim. And I'm really, really pleased to be here, of course, with Mayor Mitchell as well, who I have to tell you, you guys probably all know this being local, but David is extraordinarily thoughtful and passionate about growing Bridgewater, and the vision that he and the council have had that has led to this happening has been a huge part of the success we're celebrating here today. So thank you, David, for all your leadership on this. Mais avant de commencer, je veux souligner que nos pensées sont avec les familles à Amqui qui vivent des moments extrêmement difficiles.
So that will represent a lot of jobs, job security for a while. But I do find it ironic that Justin Trudeau stands there and makes an announcement like this, talking about the green economy at a tire factory.
But it's great to be back here in Nova Scotia to talk about jobs and our work to build a strong economy right across Canada. More specifically, it's great to be here in Bridgewater today. Because if we want small communities to be thriving, vibrant places where people can be proud of their work, where young families get to stay and grow, we need good jobs and great careers. And that's what today's announcement is all about. We're investing to help modernize Michelin's facilities here in Nova Scotia, which is securing people's jobs at this plant and creating new positions too. Of course, this isn't just good for your local economy, it's also good for the environment. More and more people want clean technologies in their lives, including electric vehicles. And we know that EVs require tires that are designed differently. These new modernized facilities will be able to manufacture tires that will respond to the global demand for EVs. And at the same time, Michelin will reduce pollution in their operations by electrifying key parts of the manufacturing process. So, like most Canadians, I came into this day saying, okay, I understand that EV tires are probably slightly different from regular tires, but why? So I asked Rita, and I asked Troy, and I asked Mike, and I asked Jamie about the processes here. And the answers I got were absolutely fascinating. First of all, EVs have a lot more torque, so the grip of the tire onto the wheel is really, really important. Noise is key. If you have a really quiet engine and all you're hearing is really loud tires, that could be a problem. Really quiet engine and you're hearing loud tires, that's an issue you have to have. There's all sorts of efficiency challenges as well. And the work that's being done here at the Bridgewater plant by these extraordinary workers and figuring that out and building those solutions for the future is something that is really, really exciting to see and that people should be extraordinarily proud of. Aujourd'hui, on s'engage à soutenir Michelin pour aider à moderniser ses installations ici en Nouvelle-Écosse.
If you're going to pass laws, legislation, create financial incentive programs, revise your taxation system, revamp your supply chains, hand out billions of dollars in subsidies, grants, and tax breaks to corporations, don't you think you should understand the
thank our great Canadian workers here in Nova Scotia
industry a little bit better before you proceed?
Like I said, it's because of you that companies like Michelin continue to invest in Canada. It's because of you that we're able to build a clean tech ecosystem here and right across the country, with lithium from Alberta, rare earth elements from the north, nickel from Labrador and Northern Ontario, clean steel from Hamilton, clean aluminum from Quebec. And it's great workers like you who produce battery materials along the Avalon Peninsula, and assemble batteries and EVs along the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence, EVs that roll on tires made here in Nova Scotia. 8 years ago, when we first got elected, we talked about climate change. And I know for Canadians, the environment matters deeply, but the fight against climate change for decades was always put in the context of, oh, well, you can either protect the environment or you can grow the economy. You can't do both together. And 8 years ago, when we got elected, we said, no, no, no. Not only can you do them both together, that's actually the only way to both build a strong economy for the future and protect the environment. You have to do them together. And I will admit that during those first few years, there was a lot of skepticism. There was a lot of people saying, I don't know, you're taking a hit on the economy. But what we're seeing right now, as Canada has moved into the second place in the world in terms of battery supply chains, as increasingly companies from around the world are coming to say, can we produce our goods here with cleaner energy? Canada being 80% clean energy already is a huge advantage that we're continuing to build on. Are we going to be able to source critical minerals and resources sustainably with both environmental responsibility, because that's what customers around the world want, and good union or good, well-paid middle-class jobs that are going to support families and the communities they live in? These are things increasingly people around the world are looking for. And that approach that we have been building deliberately is really starting to bear fruit. And it's bearing fruit right here because we get to do the very happy job of explaining and demonstrating the extraordinary work ethic, quality, integrity, and abilities of Canadian workers themselves. That is what is so exciting. So as we move into this future, as we build these EV tires, as we build these EVs, it'll be powered by green energy, including clean energy generated by wind turbines here in Nova Scotia. We're exactly on the right track. And it's not just companies like Michelin that are noticing. Just yesterday, the largest car maker in Europe, Volkswagen, announced that it has chosen Canada to build its very first battery plant in North America. Francois Philippe and I and many others worked really hard to attract this major investment. It's Europe's largest automaker, and it's a major investment also in a very small community of St. Thomas, Ontario. With our highly skilled workforce, our clean energy, our abundance of critical minerals, and our access to markets, Canada will continue to be an attractive investment destination with everything companies need to grow. Que ce soit pour les minéraux critiques, la fabrication de véhicules électriques ou d'autres domaines.
So I know that some people focus on the ownership or partial ownership of a refinery out on the East Coast that the Trudeau family has an interest in. And of course, you need the oil to manufacture these tires.
Another way we're fighting climate change while standing up for families and growing the economy is through pollution pricing. For example, a family of 4 here in Bridgewater will get a climate action incentive check worth $272 every 3 months starting this July. That's over $1,000 a year, and it more than makes up for the extra costs because of the carbon price. So it's how you fight climate change, how you encourage companies and businesses to innovate, while at the same time putting more money back in people's pockets. Good jobs, clean air, support for families, that's what we'll continue to deliver for people here in Nova Scotia and right across the country. We don't have to choose between the environment and the economy. What we're building here and across the country makes it obvious that protecting the environment and growing the economy go hand in hand. So thank you for everything all of you have done to be here to get to this point today. And it's with great pleasure that I now pass it over to Premier Houston. Good.
So you've got the idea. More government money being pumped into a factory, money going to a major multinational corporation, Michelin, so they can manufacture tires and they put a green spin on it, but they're still manufacturing tires. And they can talk about the electrification of the factory and try to sugarcoat it any way they want and put, like I say, a green spin on it. But the reality is they're manufacturing tires made from oil. They have the same issues facing the industry that they always have. Those tires have to be recycled. And used tires are a giant environmental issue. I don't personally have an issue myself with tire manufacturing. I think there are a lot of different ways to use used tires, and automobiles in general are much more environmentally friendly than people realize because they are generally one of the original recyclable products. Almost everything, virtually everything on an automobile is recycled and has been from the very beginning, including the tires. Sometimes they're not responsibly handled, but they can be chopped up, used in roads, all kinds of different consumer products. The rubber actually has value. There's a place right here in my hometown where they turn old tires into roofing shingles. So there are a lot of different things that can be done with them and are done with them. But there really isn't, I don't think, that much different. And maybe, they do have some new technologies they're employing at that factory out on the East Coast that green it up a little bit. But overall, I don't personally. I think it's virtue signaling is what it is. And finding justification for the injection of that money. More government money. Everything. Every time a factory does anything in this country, there's a giant government handout. It's corporate welfare across the board. Everybody has their hands out. Everybody's getting something from the government, all the way up and down. And then you wonder why we have no freedom. Because the bigger the state, the smaller the citizen. The more they give you for free, the more they control you. And it's a huge advantage to a company like Michelin because when they get that government handout, their competitors are pushes their competitors back on their heels. And it's a huge barrier to entry into the industry for any other startup company. You want to get into the business of manufacturing tires? Good luck. You're going to have to buy your way in. You're going to need the money up front. And then you're going to be standing in line with your handout too, just to remain competitive. It's a rough game. And it isn't really balanced. The government in these situations gets to pick winners and losers. And when they pick wrong, the economy suffers. When they pick right, well, that doesn't happen very often. It just increases inefficiencies in many respects because the market forces are all skewed. And Volkswagen coming to St. Thomas, Ontario, again, a massive injection of government money to make that all come together. That's not just Volkswagen picking St. Thomas, by throwing a dart at a map. That's them picking St. Thomas, Ontario. First of all, because it is strategically located. Secondly, because there's skilled workforce there. But probably most importantly, because the government is giving them a whole bunch of free money, incentivizing them to go there. It's the way it works. That's what's going on. Back to the struggle, the conflict between NATO, the United States, and Russia through Ukraine. A U.S. drone was intercepted by a Russian fighter jet. And this has escalated tensions. The United States, Washington making a big deal out of this. So it was a Russian Su-27 fighter jet. It intercepted and struck the propeller of a U.S. military MQ-9 Reaper surveillance drone. As a result, that drone crashed into the Black Sea. And this, of course, on the radar for NATO and NATO's Supreme Allied Commander Europe, U.S. Army General Christopher Cavoli briefed NATO allies about the incident, and they have condemned this at the White House and at the Pentagon, and they say this risks further escalation. No kidding. So 2 Russian Su-27 jets carried out what the United States military is describing as a reckless intercept of the American spy drone before one of them collided with it at 7:03 a.m. So I guess several times before the collision, according to information released by the United States, the Russian fighter jets dumped fuel on the MQ-9, possibly trying to blind or damage it, according to U.S. officials, and they flew in front of the unmanned drone in unsafe maneuvers. It's a war. I don't know why you would try to do something safely when you're at war and you have a surveillance drone that you'd probably like to see go down anyway. So the United States making a big deal out of this. They're saying this could lead to more escalation. I don't know how much more escalation you're going to get unless they send in U.S. and Canadian forces and put boots on the ground there to back up the dwindling Ukrainian forces. Or if we go nuclear, how much more escalation can we get? The whole thing is out of control as it is. And this, honestly, this is just saber rattling by the United States. Nothing will come of this. This is a drone. We have people dying over there. That's more concerning than this stupid drone. Human lives are more important than a drone. And if the United States wants to escalate things beyond where we've escalated to over a drone, it should really tell you something. Their priorities are not straight, and they are, and this is my opinion, they're insane. These people are playing with guns. Well, the president stands there tonight and talks about gun control domestically. And then we send billions and billions and billions of dollars over to Ukraine, along with weapons to kill people. And then they get upset about a drone. It's just window dressing. It's just something to talk about to get people jacked up and manufacture ongoing consent for a war that I think is really getting to a point where public support for it is diminishing. And I'm pretty sure if you look at where we're, if this thing continues for another 6 months or a year, you'll see public support for it dropping and dropping. And I don't think that the support for it publicly, through the public, is even where it was a year ago. People are slowly becoming more and more aware of what the circumstances surrounding this war really are. A lot of people don't pay attention. That's a problem. But the word is getting out, and I think that the push for peace is gaining momentum. Don't go away. I'll be back as soon as I queue up some more clips after this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So in Canada, the House of Commons is not sitting, but there is a standing committee that is still looking, they are addressing the issue of foreign meddling in Canadian elections, specifically Chinese meddling. And there is growing evidence of Chinese money that was flowing to certain politicians in this country. And that it's getting to the point where it's undeniable that it has been happening. The degree to which still remains to be seen, but we're talking about tens of thousands in some cases, and even hundreds of thousands of dollars distributed to a number of politicians to bolster campaigns. And there's even a paper trail going back to 2015, 2016, 2015, 2016 to Justin Trudeau's campaign that is being looked at. We showed you some of those donations coming from outside his riding, specifically from British Columbia and the Vancouver area, where a lot of people on those lists, on the list, we showed you 4 pages of them, had Chinese names or names that appear to be Chinese. And now further investigation is showing that some of those people do have ties back to China, and it appears that some of them have various political affiliations that are raising some eyebrows. So we'll see where those investigations lead. But today, while out in Nova Scotia, the Prime Minister did indicate that he'll be appointing or naming that special rapporteur to look into this very soon. So this is a week now after committing to name that new special rapporteur to take on assessing the allegations of federal election interference by China and the issue of foreign meddling in general. And he says that he should name that person to tackle that job at least within the next week. And I won't go back to his address there in Nova Scotia, but while there today, he did say that he, quote, "We know how important it is for Canadians to have confidence in our system and to have the right independent expert, reassuring of that. Because this is not about what one political party says or another," Trudeau said. "It's about making sure that experts are stepping up to reinforce the integrity of our democratic processes. We are working to appoint that special rapporteur, that special independent expert, in the coming days or week. We're working extremely quickly on that." Blah, 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 blah. So as I've said, I think that a lot of what he has done here is he's, instead of just agreeing to proceed with an inquiry to look into the issue of foreign meddling in Canadian elections, which is what the opposition parties want, and I think the Canadian public wants it. He's trying to delay and confuse. He's trying to make it look like he's actually doing something when he's really doing nothing. He's hoping that by talking about appointing a rapporteur to look at the issue to determine if there should be an inquiry, it looks like he's actually taking action, when in fact, he's just adding a step in the process and not really taking a direct approach to dealing with the issue. However, the RCMP is investigating. There's another investigation going on, and that may lead to something that casts new light on this as well. I think he will ultimately have to give in, cave to the pressure, and proceed with some sort of inquiry, because this is sticking to him. This is an issue that is beginning to erode the Teflon that seems to have covered him. The mainstream media bought and paid for with his grants, millions of dollars, millions and millions of dollars going into mainstream media companies, not having the shielding effect that it has up to this point. I think this might actually mean that we're not going to get that spring election. I think he'll have to wait. I think, as I've said before, he wanted to call a spring election because he knew the economy was in trouble. That's why he was looking at it. And we know the other opposition parties were hearing about it. They've been preparing for it. They've been going so far as to start to line up candidates in ridings across the country in preparation for this. But I think it'll be delayed now because of this. This will hurt Trudeau, even though other politicians from other parties might even be wrapped up in this, because the Chinese approach is not to be militarily aggressive. It's to take kind of a business approach to this in a way. They refer to these offices that the Chinese have been setting up in Canada as police stations, Chinese police stations. That may be an accurate description, but they're really set up with a front of like a business front to them. And ultimately what the Chinese are doing here in order to exert influence or inject their influence into the political system is to basically send, like, and I'm not directing this at any specific politician or any executive with any specific company or any administrator or any individual. But the approach that the Chinese take, I think, is more business-like, almost like organized crime. They go in, they target people who have influence that they think they can have sway over, and they offer them something, sometimes money, support for their campaigns. Here's financial incentive to do what we want you to do. And they don't just do it with individual politicians. They'll do it with institutions, with organizations, with companies, where they'll invest or give grants to universities. And when you do that, then you have influence over curriculum, what they teach. So that's kind of the approach. And, you know, that same approach, I think, is really paying off internationally for them because they're doing the same thing in a way. Well, the point is, as I said last night, they have just brokered this peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And they've been on the forefront of negotiating or suggesting or proposing peace between Ukraine and Russia, not the United States. And they've done this without setting up military bases in a lot of these other countries like the United States has. Their approach is different. They've kind of gone in and they've said, hey, instead of doing this, why don't we do some business? In a lot of ways, I would say China is more capitalistic than the United States and Canada is. They're more free market than the West is today. That's why you're seeing all the manufacturing happening over there, the massive advances in technology, and you're seeing the rise of China as a mediator, as a leader on the world stage when it comes to having influence over even international conflicts and wars, replacing the United States in that role. Because Biden is such a weak leader, because they've destroyed the economy, they have been chopping people off at the knees. The stupidity that has been on display since, especially over the past 3 years with the pandemic. Shutting down production, shutting down the economy, telling everybody to stay home, giving everybody free money, reduce productivity, reduce production, ship jobs overseas, gut the manufacturing sector, declare war on the energy sector, shut down energy production, to a huge percentage of what the output used to be, to really cripple the energy sector, especially in Canada. Use your economic might through sanctions and other economic tools. Use those tools as a form of warfare to leverage your influence around the world. And the whole objective in Ukraine was to try to cripple the economy of Russia, shut things down over there, and it's all backfired. It's not surprising to see China rise while the United States suffers, and specifically the people suffer as they play these silly games. The U.S. NATO approach to a lot of this stuff is through the use of coercion, force, military might to assert their influence internationally. Sort of doing exactly what they accuse the other side of doing, the Chinese, the Russians. And so what are we seeing? Instead, we're seeing those other countries like China, Iran, Russia, start to decouple from the US dollar, pull themselves out of the US dominated international economic system. And I think that we'll see more of this. And that's also largely what I think this war in Ukraine is about. It's about economics. The United States being at a stage where we could be seeing the end of US dominance on the stage internationally, in terms of its economic might. That's what this conflict is about. Anytime you see countries squaring off like this, or dynasties, or empires squaring off against each other to determine who's going to control the world economy, inevitably you're going to get, and we are seeing that we're getting, kinetic warfare. So hold on to your wallets, because this, like I said before, it's just getting started. And these banks collapsing, the economic stress that we're seeing, this is just the beginning, man. And it's people, average, ordinary, everyday, ordinary people who end up suffering because we're the cannon fodder. Don't go away.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
You know, it's really, for me, and I am editorializing here, but it's infuriating to even sit here and talk about what they have done to the economy, what they've done to people. I really started to think about this overnight because Leo, Mouth of the South, sent me a video that he shot during the early days of the pandemic. I don't know if he sent it to me or if it just popped up in my feed, but this is an older video. Remember during the early stages of the pandemic, the really early stages when COVID hit and everybody went crazy and they started buying up all the toilet paper? I mean, they were screwing with everybody's minds. They still are. The public in general is being manipulated psychologically. On all sides, by the way. It's not just the government. There are people out there with political motivations that are manipulating people psychologically. There's no question about it. And the whole COVID pandemic thing, it was the greatest mind you know what in history. And people's memories are short. The public is fickle. People sort of forget about things, even within days, sometimes, just a few weeks, it'll just be thrown to the back of someone's mind, But seeing this video, it was a harsh reminder of where we've been over the past 3 years. So talking about the battle for currency dominance in international markets and which country will have the reserve currency for the world, which right now is the US dollar. Those are the macro issues. Then it comes down to toilet paper, fighting over toilet paper. And I think about what they've done to the economy, what they did over the past 3 years. It really is, in many respects, I think it is criminal what they've done to people. Forcing people to stay at home, shutting businesses down, especially small businesses, while big box stores were allowed to stay open. The rules were not applied evenly. They said they were following the science when clearly they were not following the science on issues like how many people could they stuff into a Costco or a Walmart. The information that went out to the general public over the past 3 years just drove people insane to the point where they rushed to the supermarkets or the Walmarts or the Costcos to buy up all the toilet paper in sight. And why? It didn't even make sense. At the time, there was no indication that there was like production shutting down of like toilet paper. And it wasn't like we couldn't get the raw materials because they were still operating the pulp and paper mills. Honestly, it didn't make sense. But somehow the message went out to people. I don't know how, whether it was mainstream media or social media, a combination of both. I don't know. But people lost their freaking minds. And they started buying up toilet paper. And things just went downhill after that. Really, I mean, the toilet paper crisis ended after a little while. But other things got a whole lot worse. Masks, fighting in stores, police arresting kids on ice skating rinks. In Toronto, they put up fences around trees and parks so that no one could touch them because you might get COVID from a tree. They shut down beaches. You weren't allowed to walk on a beach. Even if you were by yourself, they'd arrest you for taking a stroll down a beach by yourself. Couldn't see loved ones who were passing away. In New York, the governor, Mr. Cuomo, had hospital ships supplied to him by President Trump, but instead of making use of those, he stuffed infected people into nursing homes. The result? A lot of people died in those nursing homes. They took the sickest people and put them in the same buildings as the most vulnerable. And then they gave the guy an Emmy. Blows my mind. At the time, I was furious. I could see that that was insane. I could see that it put the most vulnerable people in harm's way, that you were going to definitely end up with a lot of sick people and death. And that is exactly what happened. There's been some review of that, but people have not really been properly held to account for those kinds of actions. And I know, just as a journalist, from covering outbreaks in nursing homes from the past over the years, things like flus, you isolate, you lock places, you lock those facilities down in order to prevent spread, and you restrict who comes in and who goes out. But that doesn't mean you shut down entire communities. That's never been the approach before, but that's kind of what we got. And then worse, because Cuomo put sick people into nursing homes. That was just one example of the insanity. And then the money printing, the free money for people, the creating disincentive to actually go to work, and then actually preventing people from going to work. And they just gutted the economy. And now today we're experiencing the ramifications of that. And what's the government response in the US? Well, they're just going to cough up more taxpayer dollars to make sure the depositors are covered for the losses that are there. So again, a government bailout, which is actually a people bailout. It's people, us, bailing ourselves out. And how do they do that? Print more money, add to the inflation. They say they're solving a problem, but what they're really doing is just kicking the can down the road. The question is, can they kick the can any further down the road? Will it work this time? Maybe. Not clear. We have a pretty serious problem. But, this video is from the beginning of the pandemic, from Leo. Make no mistake, what I'm about to show you to remind you of where we're at, of what happened, is directly connected to what we're experiencing today. Let's let some of this roll, because this blows my mind. Even now, just watching this, what an incredible video by Lee. Look at
this. Is the checkout at Superstore. You got to check this out. On Dougal Avenue. This is the checkout. The world's gone mad. Yeah, thumbs up. This is a checkout. No word of a lie. You got to see this to believe it. See, everybody's honkering down here. It's unbelievable what I'm seeing here. There is no toilet paper, by the way. I got the last 2 rolls. Soap and water. This is a checkout line. And I just have to show this. This is in Canada. The checkout line. So Costco, you got shit on theirs. And I'm still walking. Everybody's waiting to check out. Look at. I had to film this because I can't believe what I'm watching here. And CBC should be checking this out. Okay, so now we're back around the back of the store. This is still the checkout line. There is no toilet paper. There is no water. Because I have it all. Hi, Anna. And this lineup keeps going. This is everybody's waiting to check out.
You want bridge? Grab burgers for me too.
And it keeps going around the store. All the way around the store. Toilet paper. Tell Frank we need some shit tickets down here.
Right.
There's none. There's none. So times are very strange here as everybody honkers down, school closures and work closures. All kinds of things are happening. I'm not feeling that well, especially after seeing this.
Try to press your unmute button.
Just brutal. Where's my card? Oh, right here. See, I got all the toilet paper. Crazy times, folks. Honker down. It's going to be a long one from what they're saying, right? And if they do predict and the country does shut down, the people that are here waiting will be ready, I guess. It's sad, very sad times we're in. Back onto the 420 festival. Yes, I canceled that due to health and wellness of everybody else. And it'll be held on July 10th, 2020, which is upside down to 710, which means oil. So it's also a 420 weekend. I got a 3-day permit for that one also. So it's going to happen. Ciao for now.
Everything was getting shut down at that time, like everything. And things have really not returned to, in my view, they have not even come close to coming back to where they were. I am involved, have been involved with that big auto show up in Ottawa. And we would normally be doing that show right around now, every year. Not happening again this year. Finally, this year, some auto shows came back. The Canadian International Auto Show was on. The auto companies came back, but not to the degree that they have in the past. A lot of auto companies were not there this year. Honda, Mercedes-Benz, not participating. Maybe next year we'll see the return of events like that in full. Hopefully we do. I think we're on track for that. It looks like there will be an auto show in Ottawa next year. It all depends, though, on the economic conditions. And it's not just auto shows, it's economy-wide. Everything has changed. It just is not the same. We don't have the vibrancy that we had before. And now to have this happen in the banking industry, this echoes of the economic crisis, the crash that we saw in 2008. But I think this one has the potential to be a whole lot worse. And because they've spent so much and printed so much, I just don't think they have much room to maneuver. And I look back at all this COVID pandemic crap that they put us through, and it infuriates me. And the truth is coming out through data. It's coming out. People are connecting the dots. It's just a matter of time. We're seeing it. Patience, patience, patience. I don't know what the end game looks like exactly. I don't think anyone really does. I can only say that the smart game is to remain calm. Approach it with facts. Deal with it through the system. Because the system will allow for it to be dealt with if you use it. And I know people are frustrated. But the truth is coming out. And the data is undeniable. And we're winning on the truth side. And one of the tools we have at our disposal is humor. And thank you, Pure Night, for sending me this the other day. Enjoy.
Welcome to the World Economic Forum's training video for new Ministry of Truth hires. It's all in the delivery. In this lesson, you will learn how to make horrible things sound normal. Digital IDs. Never say the words surveillance, control, or social credit systems. Instead ask, wouldn't it be nice to have the freedom to leave home without your wallet? Unpeopling. Rather than use the word depopulation or overpopulation, say freeing up traffic. Pose the question, wouldn't the earth be beautiful without all of these people in the way? Perhaps you could finally get a table at that tapas restaurant you've been wanting to try. Yum. 15-minute cities. Don't say words like segregated neighborhoods or discriminatory policing of public spaces. Instead say, creates a healthy buffer between races and classes. This video has been brought to you by Soil and Steaks. Soil and Steaks, for the elite cannibal with a conscience.
Remember Soylent Green, the movie? Soylent Green. Soylent Green is people. Charlton Heston, science fiction, now science reality. Almost. Well, I don't know that they're feeding us people, but they're feeding us crickets, insects. If that isn't enough to gross you out, infuriate you, I don't know what is. How about the drug problem? You know, today I was speaking to some people who help the homeless and help a lot of people with drug addictions. And they're telling me, you know, that the opioid crisis is like way out of control. They were telling me that the homeless problem in my hometown is also way out of control. When I moved here about 20 years ago, I don't even think to find a homeless person in this town, pretty tough. They were there, but not very many people in this small town that I live in. Today, we have encampments. People living down by the river, people apparently, I'm told, living in the woods. And these are people who know. They're providing services through a charity to those most in need. And they're telling me that it's gone beyond fentanyl. There's some new drug out there. It's called the zombie drug. It's called Xylus something. I can't remember the exact name that they gave to this today. But they refer to it as a zombie drug. Xylazine, that's what it is. Xylazine. I guess that's rising as a big problem, and it's powerful. I don't really know much about it, but it's already becoming a huge issue, even in my hometown. Fentanyl, that was already a problem. They can't get their hands around that one. They can't wrestle control of that. And here's another one that people are dealing with. Huge issues, man. This is the result of lack of opportunity, bad government policies, poor enforcement, increasing tolerance in the community of different kinds of drugs, and even promotion through mainstream media, including the CBC, of hard drugs, where they're promoting the use of them. I listen to CBC radio from time to time, and I am shocked at what I hear, especially when it comes to the attitude toward narcotics. Today, Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, addressing the opioid epidemic, along with foreign election interference. I have a clip from him queued up. Let's listen to what Pierre had to say about all of this today.
Everyone for being here today, now in English. After 8 years of Justin Trudeau, everything feels broken. Inflation rising faster than at any time in 40 years, after $500 billion of inflationary deficits bid up the cost of the goods we buy and the interest that we pay. His carbon taxes, with the support of the NDP, are driving up heat and grocery bills, so seniors have to choose between heating and eating. 9 in 10 Canadians now say, young Canadians now say they'll never own a home after housing costs have doubled under Justin Trudeau. Here in Vancouver and the Vancouver region, I should say, those costs are worse than ever. The reason is that inflationary federal deficits are moving up interest rates on our mortgage payments, and local gatekeepers block construction, driving up housing costs and making it impossible for our young to house themselves. All of this has led to despair. Everything feels broken. There's a 32% increase in violent crime after Trudeau brought in a catch and release bail system that allows criminals who've committed dozens of violent offenses to be released the very same day they are arrested, out on bail to reoffend again and again. In Vancouver alone, the same 40 people were arrested 6,000 times in a year. That's 150 arrests per person per year. All of them getting out on bail most of the time the same day because of Trudeau's broken catch and release bail system. Something my government will fix with common sense bail reforms. But there's no question that part of the problem is the opioid and addiction crisis. Just this week, we learned that the overdose rate has more than doubled since the opioid crisis was declared in 2016. This is the result of broken NDP Liberal policies that flood our streets with easy drugs. But it's also the result of a lack of treatment programs that could be saving lives. Those programs are going to cost a lot of money. It's worth the money, but who should pay? Well, who caused the problem in the first place? Large pharmaceutical multinationals like Purdue Pharma and others brought these opioids into North America, lied to drug regulators and to the healthcare system in order to market these drugs as safe and non-addictive. They even paid bonuses to distributors who successfully caused overdoses. In other words, they were incentivizing misery. These powerful multinationals knew exactly what they were doing, but they kept doing it anyway to profit themselves and their wealthy executives. They destroyed thousands of lives. 33,000 overdose deaths since 2016. Roughly 30,000 hospitalizations have resulted, with massive costs to taxpayers and obviously massive human costs to people across our country. Yet, the Trudeau government has done nothing to hold these powerful pharmaceutical companies and their consultants like McKinsey accountable for what they have done, for the misery that they wreaked, and for the profit that they made doing all of this. A Poilievre government will hold them accountable. I will launch a massive series of lawsuits amounting to over $40 billion in claims. We will join British Columbia's lawsuit in order to recover the federal health costs that have resulted from Big Pharma's dirty and disgusting actions against our communities. We will launch a separate federal lawsuit to recover money that the federal government has had to spend on borders, Indigenous programs, policing, treatment, and other costs associated with this crisis. The people who profited from this misery should be the ones to pay the bill. It's about bringing home accountability and bringing home hope. We can transform the hurt that they caused into the hope that people need. Behind me, we have hope. We have the people who've demonstrated the courage to be clean, sober, and proud. Their families rallied to them. Their communities stepped up with programs of detox, counseling, inpatient treatment. Neighboring Alberta, they've doubled the number of treatment beds, which has lowered the overdose rate and begun to save lives. In other words, we know what we need to do. We need to get people off the streets and into treatment so that we can bring them home drug-free. And a Poilievre government will do that. We will sue Big Pharma, and we will make them pay the price of a massive surge in recovery and treatment programs that will save the lives of our brothers, sisters, friends, and neighbors. Hope is possible, but it requires accountability. And a Poilievre-led government will deliver both that accountability and that hope. Thank you very much to the incredible people who are here today for your amazing courage. You are now an inspiration to people, to literally thousands of people who are going through what you have survived. You have demonstrated that it is possible to turn your lives around and to live drug-free lives, to support your communities and your family. You have demonstrated incredible courage. Let's make more stories like this. Let's help people recover. Let's give them hope. Let's bring it home. Your home, my home, our home, Canada. Thank you.
Pierre Poilievre. And take a few questions. We'll let them roll a little bit here.
I'm Daphne Bramham from the Vancouver Sun-Post Media. You talk about joining British Columbia in this lawsuit. I'm wondering where your government would stand on the program of decriminalization that's been approved by the federal government with the BC government, and also on the issue of safe supply.
Okay, so I will answer those. I just want to clarify that what I've proposed today is not just to join the British Columbia lawsuit, but also to launch a separate federal lawsuit. For the provincial lawsuit, we're going to seek $4 billion in federal damages because of the extra federal health costs, but we're also going to launch a separate federal lawsuit to go after non-health costs like border security, prisons, Indigenous programming, etc. So a total of roughly $45 billion is what Big Pharma owes federal taxpayers, and we're going to put that money towards recovery and treatment. As for decriminalization, I don't believe that decriminalizing crack, heroin, illicit fentanyl, methamphetamines is the solution. That is effective. Decriminalization has been effectively practiced in Vancouver for the last 5 or 6 years. Police have not been arresting people for possession for that time. We've seen the result. The NDP Liberal approach over the last 7 years has been a disaster. And we see it walking down Hastings Street. We see it in the data. The data is now absolutely conclusive. Putting more drugs on our streets makes for higher overdoses and more crime. What we need to do is give people the hope for a drug-free life by putting our resources into recovery and treatment programs like the one run by Last Door. Thank you.
Okay, next question. Hi, my name is Martin McMahon with City News. I just had a question related to a social media post a couple of weeks ago, and it's on housing, which is something you're talking about. And it makes a point that it was 4 or 5 years for people to save up for a down payment before Prime Minister Trudeau came into power. I'm just trying to clarify, are you talking about the year 2014? And if not, what period are you talking about? And do you stick by that claim that it took 4 or 5 years for people to save up for a down payment in 2014?
That claim is, I don't remember exactly what post you're talking about. We have lots of posts, but here are the facts. When Trudeau took office, the average mortgage payment for an average new home purchase was $1,400. Now it's $3,200. It's more than doubled. The average rent in Canada's 10 biggest cities was $950. Now it's well over $2,000. So housing costs have doubled under Justin Trudeau. And if I can be blunt, across Canada, housing was cheap when Justin Trudeau took office. Very cheap. The average house was $450,000. Now it's been well over $700,000. And again, the average mortgage payment was a modest $1,400 for a new purchase. So we can show that Justin Trudeau and his government have presided over the doubling of housing costs. and made it next to impossible for anyone to save up for a home. You know, I was talking to a young lady who works as a CATSA screener at Pearson Airport in Toronto. Good job. She's saving $6,000 a year for a future down payment. She needs 60 grand for that down payment. That's 10 years. She's 27 years old. That means if house prices don't rise at all, she'll be almost 40 before she can afford a home. Before Trudeau, people in their mid-20s could easily afford housing. And so it is clear that this is 8 years of Justin Trudeau. The solution is to get rid of the inflationary deficits that have driven up mortgage rates and to bring in incentives for municipalities to grant faster building permits, to put high-density housing around every federally funded transit station, and to sell off 15% of the 37,000 federal buildings to convert them into affordable housing for our young people. We will bring homes people can afford. Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, Ashley Joanno, Canadian Press. I'm interested specifically in your position on supervised consumption sites. Would a government led by you leave the laws in place as they are currently for these sites where people can bring their own drugs and use them under medical supervision, or introduce new rules?
Well, the existing overall system has failed. The data is clear now. Overdose rates have skyrocketed under the NDP and Liberal approach that has allowed for drugs to flood our streets. Now we're seeing that, for example, the so-called safe supply of hydromorphine has led people to take those drugs, sell them to kids, rip off their labels, sell them to kids, and then use the profits to buy illicit fentanyl. The problem with this approach is that the government provided drugs then lead people to move to more dangerous and more dangerous drugs that ultimately lead to higher overdose rates. And that is one of the reasons why we have such a massive increase in overdose rates since the policies you've described have come into place over the last 7 years. So I believe there are medications that we should provide to help reduce the pain of withdrawal and reverse the effects of overdose. But I don't believe in flooding our communities with more and more taxpayer-funded drugs. Rather, we should use the resources to provide recovery and treatment, which is the only proven way to deliver life-saving help to people and to bring home drug-free lives.
Okay, next question.
Hi there, Melanie Nagy from CTV National News. A lot of good questions here. I have a couple for you, but since we're only allowed 5 from a total for the media, I'm going to give my question to my colleague Glenn McGregor from Ottawa. He would like to know from you, on Friday you released a video where you suggested the Prime Minister is flying on private jets. Are you suggesting that if you become Prime Minister, you would not fly on those government-operated aircraft and also forego the security detail that comes with those flights?
So the reason I mentioned his private jet is because the Prime Minister has become completely out of touch with everyday people and the way that they are suffering because of the terrible air travel in this country after 8 years of Justin Trudeau. You know, the number of flight delays, 30,000 complaints now at the Canadian Transportation Agency, 30,000 of them. And Glenn McGregor should be covering the fact that the people who make those complaints can't even get those complaints investigated. Something like 75% of the complainants are now complaining about the fact that their complaint can't be heard. This is 8 years of Justin Trudeau. We didn't have these level of delays prior to him being in office. And let's remember, air travel is exclusively federal jurisdiction. Airports are federal, airlines are federally regulated. The entire air transportation system is federal in nature. And Justin Trudeau should be accountable for the terrible treatment that our passengers are getting under his watch. He should push for more competition. He should allow for the complaints that are made against the airlines and the airports to be heard more quickly, and the penalties to be meted out to the against those airlines quicker and more accountably than he has done. And the fact, finally, on this the issue of private jets, Justin Trudeau loves to lecture people about driving too much or heating their homes. He hits them with carbon taxes to punish them for that. And yet He jets around more than any other prime minister to go on surfing trips and to go to the Caribbean in the middle of the summer. He is completely out of touch, and Canadians are completely out of money. Thank you.
This will be the last question.
I would just appeal to Mr. Polyev. My name is Yvette Brandam from CBC in Vancouver. I have a French colleague behind me who has some excellent questions, and it would be great if you could allow a couple of French questions after this, if possible.
Well, you could give your question. I think we've had 4 in English already.
Unfortunately, I'm only allowed to ask this question from Ottawa, so this is my question to you. But I would appeal to you to allow a French answer.
Why are you asking questions from Ottawa? Why can't we allow British Columbians to ask questions?
Well, you've only allowed 5, so we all had to coordinate and come up with the best question. So here's the question. How concerned are you by recent polls that show that many Conservative supporters believe the electoral system isn't fair or even? Angus Reid's findings suggested that some feel the election was even stolen. And why do you think that Conservative supporters are more concerned about this than others?
Well, I think Justin Trudeau has inspired a lot of suspicion by his refusal to, one, answer questions about his knowledge of Beijing's interference to help him in 2 successive elections. Leaked CSIS and PCO documents now show that Beijing worked to help elect Justin Trudeau. That is an accepted fact. He doesn't even deny it. But he kept it hidden until courageous whistleblowers at CSIS released it for him. And now he refuses a public inquiry. I think Canadians of all political backgrounds are asking, what has Justin Trudeau got to hide? And furthermore, why hasn't he protected Chinese Canadians? Here in British Columbia, we know that Chinese Canadians came under intimidation by the People's Republic of China government. They were threatened. There were times when Conservative candidates would knock on a door and the person answering it would say, can we go into the backyard and leave our phones behind so that we can talk without being surveilled by the regime in Beijing? I think it is disgraceful that the Prime Minister knew this and did absolutely nothing. He kept it covered up, and to this day will not even tell us how much money the Liberal Party got in donations that were funneled, clandestine donations, to his party. So if we want to restore faith in our democracy, we have to answer the questions and bring in transparency so Canadians know what happened and we get direct action to make sure it never happens again. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Okay. Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Let's move on to our next story dealing with racism. San Francisco. This has been an issue out there for a while. And I'm talking specifically about this issue surrounding the proposed reparations to Black residents to the tune of as much as $5 million per person. So this is, to say the least, controversial. And what kind of impact this might have is not entirely clear, but here's a report to kind of tee this up.
And social justice. San Francisco.
This is from the local ABC.
In the studio tonight,
affiliate.
Tim Johns, ABC 7 News.
Hang on. That didn't go properly. Let's try this. We'll bring up a different report. Just to give you a little bit of a taste of what we're at.
Civil rights attorney Leo Terrell, a Fox News contributor. William asked a lot of questions there. Where's the money come from? What's the right number? Leo, you say you're going to be the first one in line to sue. So I take it you're against
That's right. I'm 100% against the bill. I am a civil rights attorney. I would be the first attorney to file a lawsuit against it. Why? Because no one alive, Bill.
Internet issue.
Is responsible for the sins of slavery. California was a free state. The law is unconstitutional. It's illegal. It violates the equal protection law. It is basically giving money to people based on skin color. And anyone who, this is nothing more, Bill, than simply a Democratic ploy to keep blacks part of the Democratic Party. And the funny thing about it, Bill, it's happening in a blue Democratic system. There is no systemic discrimination in California, and yet they're claiming that there is racism. It doesn't make sense, Bill.
Okay, so other cities considering this: Oakland, St. Louis, Providence, Rhode Island, St. Paul, Minnesota, Amherst, Massachusetts, you see on the map. Geraldo, you see this thing becoming reality? Payouts?
I hope not.
Internet issue.
Bill, I've been, excuse me, I've been campaigning against it for many years. It is a terrible idea. And
again, sorry, folks.
Last thing people who are impoverished need is more reasons not to work. $5 million is a preposterous amount. How did they come up with that? My family, for example, my mom's relatives emigrated from the pogroms in Ukraine back in the early 1900s. My dad and his family in Puerto Rico are actually a considerable percentage Aboriginal. In other words, they were here, Native Americans, long before African slavery. Why should they be involved in this? Latinos generally, half of the country, or at least a third of the United States, used to belong to Mexico. Is there going to be reparations paid to them? How many people?
And again, the internet issue.
People will be subjected to pay. San Francisco, California, was not a slave state.
Right.
It was
right.
a free state when it was admitted
you're
to
right.
the
if
Union.
you do it, where does it stop? All fair questions. On the other side of the country, however, gentlemen, you're both lawyers. And the mayor of Washington, D.C. vetoed this new crime bill. And city council overrode the veto yesterday. So what does it do? How does the justice system change in Washington, D.C.? Here's a few examples. The crime bill will reduce maximum sentences. It gets rid of nearly every mandatory minimum sentence. It allows for...
So that's a different issue. But this concept, this idea, this call for reparations, as I say, very controversial. Some people saying that in San Francisco, if they were to proceed with this, it would actually bankrupt the city. But it isn't clear who would qualify. And those arguments being laid out by the two people on Fox News there, including Geraldo, saying that, you know, California wasn't even a state that was involved in slavery when it joined the Union, but still embracing this idea. On the other side, they're saying, yes, but there is systemic racism. It needs to be addressed. There was systemic racism throughout history, whether California was a slave state or not. And so that is I would say, the left-wing sort of woke group and their take on this issue, and other cities looking at this issue in the same way. I'm not sure that the effect of giving out that kind of money would end up having the effect that they're hoping for. I could see that sort of program backfiring and making things worse. I think that if they were to give $5 million per person to a selected group, it would breed more resentment and fuel racism. People who are forced to pay those reparations would resent it. $5 million is a lot of money per person. The people who get that money with that kind of cash, I think that might actually be harmful to them in a way. Look at what happens to people who suddenly win the lottery. a lot of them end up losing the money. They don't know how to handle it. They quit their jobs. Their lives change. I remember even locally here, someone who won the lottery. I think they won 20 million. And their life kind of fell apart. They ended up splitting up from their wife. The money got split between them. Still rich. Got a younger wife. Life fell apart in more ways than one. Because there's more to life than money. And while injustice needs to be addressed, I'm not so sure that what is going on with this is so much a quest for justice. It feels more political. And sometimes it feels like people are really out there not looking for justice at all, but really looking for revenge. And that leads to a very dark place. Just over the last few days, we ran that video of Nazis facing off against LGBTQ plus demonstrators there to support drag queens. And the insanity level was off the charts all the way around. I think programs like this ultimately, while maybe well-intentioned, will have unintended consequences that will lead to very bad places. I don't see anything good coming out of that if it's rolled out in the way that they are proposing. Just my opinion. You want people to live in harmony. You want to bring people together, not because you want them all to be the same, but because you want them all to be able to live side by side as individuals, as unique people, each and every one of us. You have to find a better way forward than to seek justice through revenge. And beware politicians who promise huge handouts. It's usually a trap. You can take that one to the bank. I'll be right back. And we're going to talk about vinyl records versus CDs. Never thought I'd see the day. I thought vinyl records were going to be a thing of the past. But they're still with us.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Okay, so vinyl records are now outselling CDs for the first time in decades. I heard about this just today. I think the story's been out for a couple of days, but the report I heard just kind of popped up into one of my feeds today. So apparently just over 41 million vinyl records were sold in 2022 to the tune of $1.2 billion. And only 33 million CDs were sold, worth $483 million. So vinyl record sales have been growing every year, year over year, for the past 16 years. And 71, sorry, I'm just checking my notes here. So the 16 years, year-over-year growth in vinyl record sales. That's right. So this brings up the whole debate. What sounds better, CDs or vinyl records? Why are people returning to vinyl? It's pretty weird. You know, my son, for a while, was going through this whole VHS videotape thing, which again, seems a little weird to me, but he started to collect videotapes. So I guess people just like to go back and pick things up as, you know, part of nostalgia. 8-track tapes, I can kind of understand that. I know a guy who has a gigantic collection of 8-track tapes and 8-track tape players. I actually did a story about him and put him on my car show a couple of years ago. But, you know, there's some 8-track tapes were kind of a quirky thing. And if you talk to someone, a young person, they probably don't even know what 8-tracks were. And I suppose I shouldn't be too surprised to see LPs or vinyl records kind of coming back in a bigger way even than CDs. There's something organic, tangible about them in a way that a CD, it's just not quite the same, because a CD is digital, the digital format. It's not, it never had that same warmth to it that a vinyl record has. And if you think back to, you know, the earliest days of the phonograph, Victrola, you know, Edison, Thomas Edison, you think back to those early days, and those are antiques now, those phonograph machines, right? And the old cylinders that they would play music on, the first devices to play recorded music. Well, anyway, let's just bring up a couple of videos here, just dealing with this. Here's a mainstream media report out of Fox News, Houston.
Listened to any music recently, it was most likely from a streaming service like Spotify, which accounts for the vast majority of music consumers.
But if you want to own a copy of the music, vinyl records have actually made a comeback that's more than 35 years in the making. Fox 26 business reporter Tom Ziska is live at Cactus Music tonight to explain. Hi, Tom.
Hello, Caroline and Jonathan. Good evening to you. 1987, I was graduating college. Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev were playing diplomatic chess. The Minnesota Twins won the World Series, and Bon Jovi dropped Living on a Prayer. It's also the year vinyl lost its fight against the CD. Until now.
On a warm spring day, there is steady traffic in Houston's Cactus Music, with people flipping through the thousands of albums, old and new, looking for music they might like to own. Cody Ortiz is working on building his record collection.
I love the idea of having a physical representation of the music that I love.
More and more, the choice for that physical representation is the age-old vinyl LP. The Recording Industry Association of America's latest year-end report finds vinyl sold more units than CDs in the U.S. last year. With more streaming options and fewer retailers selling CDs, vinyl was primed for this.
I think what you see is there's a bookshelf, the return of the bookshelf mentality, in that people, they stream everything, they might stream the tracks, but the stuff that's really great, if it's a statement from the artist, a new album, well, they have to own the whole thing.
But as a new generation of music lovers discover the experience of putting an album on a turntable and setting the needle down, it seems more than nostalgia. In an era where parents and grandparents relied on compact discs, the album is theirs.
It warms my heart to see young people getting interested in that and really digging into the heart and soul of what music was and has become now.
So that industry report says that vinyl accounted for 70% of all physical music sales last year, worth $1.2 billion. Still a fraction of the streaming music revenue, but it may be enough to get album manufacturers who have largely left the marketplace to perhaps come back and try to feed that demand. Jonathan and Caroline, fortunately enough, we have a place where people can learn about the latest music, including albums. Ruben Dominguez and Quinn Bishop from here at Cactus Music do the drop, which you can find on fox26houston.com.
Yeah. Boy, you know, I remember the days. Things back then seemed to make more sense. It made more sense for the artists in a way because you bought the album, you maybe listened to it on the radio, they got royalties from that, a few pennies from each play on each radio station. And then you bought the album, and then the money went back to the music companies, the producers, and it filtered back through royalties. Each artist got a percentage of the album sales, right? It just seemed to make sense. Now, I don't know. Sometimes the online stuff doesn't seem to make sense. But it's also opened the door through streaming and the internet. It's opened the door to huge audiences for independent musicians, independent artists, if you can cut through. So the technology has been, to say the least, very disruptive. But now it's kind of getting back to the vinyl. You know, that there is something, like I said, it's organic. And it does sound different. There's a certain amount of noise that you get when you drag that needle across the vinyl that's embedded in the music. But there's also a warmth to it that you get that you don't get from a CD. The CD is so clean, though, you know. I remember the first time I listened to a CD through headphones, and I thought, wow, that's clean. In my early days, when I was in journalism school and learning about broadcasting and working a little bit in radio, you know, if you didn't have your records clean, you'd get that static and the pops, and you'd get in trouble if you were playing music and you had noise because your record was old and scratched or damaged, or if there was too much crap in the grooves. Still, something about it. And there was something about going to that record store to buy a record, to actually like buy it, and then it was like yours and you would collect it. Now, what do you collect? You don't collect like you used to collect. Non-fungible tokens, digital assets that really are just bits and bytes that don't really, they're not really anything. Was anything ever really anything? Maybe it was just an attitude, a mindset from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Not so much the 90s. That's when CDs were around, but now it's streaming. And streaming, I think, is still much bigger than vinyl. It's a niche market. There's a store right here in my hometown, too, and probably one, maybe you have more than one in your hometown, where you can go and they specialize in vinyl records. It's not a big volume business, but they're hanging on. Even video stores, they're still around. Variety store just around the corner from me still rents videos. That to me is amazing as well, especially when you can get whatever you want online through streaming services, and yet they're still renting videos. I guess it's a service for people who don't have cable or satellite. I don't know. I'm not sure who goes out and rents movies anymore, but it's out there. Different times. Everything's changing. Okay. let's take a break. When we come back, we'll go to the phones. How about that? Don't go away. More ahead.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, the phone lines are open. Here's the number.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-FREE. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Okay, here we go. You can join the conversation at 1-833-975-3733. Also, if you would like to support the channel, please just like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell on YouTube. Consider subscribing over on Rumble. We're growing over there. Make sure you share and like everything on Facebook. And check us out on the other platforms too. Twitch, Rumble, Clouthub, Gab. We're kind of getting all over the place. So we're getting around and we're gaining ground. And you can be part of it all here tonight at 1-833-975-3733. 1-833-975-FREE. And time to take our first caller of the night. Go ahead, sir. You're on the air.
You got the mouth of the South, the man without a plan to master all disasters, Rick. And I'll tell you, are you on Pornhub yet?
I'm waiting for you and John to get together and to organize that for me.
Yeah, baby. Here we go. We got a lot to talk about tonight. I feel really sorry for the people of Ukraine that are stuck in the middle of this, right? Not preaching to the choir when we knew it was going to happen. We're paying for this shit at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
In more ways than we think. Right, and the poor lady there, the Ukrainians are the ones doing all the disaster in that town, man.
Yeah,
it's just sad, man. Really sad. You know, just imagine being in that position. A little sense of any normality in anybody's life. You know, that's not normal.
Yeah.
You know, it's not at all. So hopefully that ends soon. And as for PP. I don't know, man. I'm really on the fence with this guy because you can't arrest your way out of the issues we have with the drug problems we have right now. Now, a lot of people, and this is a true story. The other day, my brother posted, he's a manager of Good Life Fitness, I think, in Sarnia.
Yep.
Okay, and he's been there for years. And there's a homeless kid. He said maybe 19, 20 years old behind the building, and he's got his little encampment there. My brother went behind there with somebody from the gym, and the kid was purple. He was shooting fentanyl or whatever, right? And he was purple, like fuck, near dead. My brother stabilized his head, the whole 9 yards, and the kid took a big gasp of air. Okay, and the color came back, called the ambulance. They gave him the Noxalin or whatever they give the kid, right? But he saved the kid's life the other day. Okay, this is going on everywhere. And when you have people that are desperate, and he said it right, okay, when you have people that are desperate, that are struggling to survive, okay, you have to have the willingness to change in order to make those changes, right? But when you have mental illness and people so desperate to the point that they don't care if they live or die, you know, Pierre's got his hands full. And when it costs, on average, $60,000 per year per inmate, by the way, he didn't mention that in his little speech. $60K per inmate. That's a lot of money, Rick.
It is.
Okay, and he didn't mention where that money's going to come from. You better build a lot of prisons, and a lot of prisons fast, because if you think you're going to arrest your way out of the drug issues we have today, it's not going to work. The war on drugs was lost many moons ago, and I know firsthand. Okay, rehabs do work, but when you only have 2% of the people, and that's for alcohol also, okay? 2% of people that recover, that's 98% that wind up either dead, institutionalized, okay, or finding that recovery. So you really don't have much of a choice when you're at the end of that rope. 2%. That's not much, Rick. That's
no.
2 out of every 100. 2 out of every 100 that's going to make it. The other 98 either going to wind up dead or in a prison somewhere, or an insane asylum. Right? So I don't know. I don't know what Pierre's got planned, but it's not. I'll tell you what. If he thinks he's going to arrest people out of it, he's wrong. We don't have the money right now. I'll tell you, or we're already been spent. And for him to sit there and say that housing was affordable in Vancouver prior to 2015, he's so full of shit. Okay, I lived in Vancouver in 2008. Now, if you want to live in the town of Abbotsford, where gang-riddled Surrey, let's say, out in the Fraser Valley, yeah, you're going to get your place for $400,000. Not now, in 2015, but in Vancouver, in the city center, South Vancouver, West Vancouver, you're not touching nothing for anything under $900,000. That was in 2015.
Sure, but I mean, you have to acknowledge that, you know, if you're looking at like a city like London, right? I think the numbers that he was referring to were kind of about accurate. Even here in this town where I live, kind of in that zone. And I don't think there's any question things are a whole lot worse now than they were 8 years ago before Trudeau came to power. There's been a lot of inflation.
I bought 2 houses, one in East Vancouver, one off Boundary at 28, okay? East Vancouver, for $55,000 in 1990. And I bought another house in Windsor, Ontario, that sat stagnant. I paid $90,000 for the house. Sat stagnant up until 2 or 3 years ago, right, when the housing crisis went crazy.
Yep.
The house in Vancouver sold that I paid for $50,000, okay, in 2000. So in 10 years, $750,000, Rick. So when Pierre says that it was affordable in 2015 in Vancouver, I call him a fucking liar. Okay, because I know.
Did he
I was in the middle
specifically
of that.
to Vancouver in his speech? I don't recall.
Yes, he did.
Did he? Okay.
Yes, he did. Now, like I said, if you move to Surrey or Abbotsford or Langley, you might pick up something around $500,000 today. Okay. And I've watched my buddies get really seriously rich off real estate in BC, just buying houses, living in them for a couple of years, and the market was going up so much they were making $200,000-$300,000 a year on their real estate. That's a lot of money.
Yep.
Right. So it is what it is. There, he's lying on that aspect. But you're missing another big story today. I don't think you covered it. The Russians, get your ship tickets ready, folks. The Russians shot down a military U.S. drone today.
Well, yeah, I did touch on that, actually.
And that's where you're going to need your ship tickets. It wasn't a UFO. It was a drone.
Yeah.
At least the Russians aren't lying. Right? So with the banks failing the way that they are right now, man, everybody just hold tight. I don't know. My advice is stay sober if you can. Right? But it's going to lead a lot of people in despair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? When despair happens, people try to reach out for something to soothe that despair. It might be your alcohol. Okay? It might be your drugs. Be very careful, because you could be a victim very fast. You know, when the average Canadian right now is just living week to week. Okay. You know, maybe I might give my workers $1 million bonus next week, just before I claim bankruptcy, like 2 days before I claim bankruptcy. I'll give everybody $1 million on the shop floor, Rick. Sounds familiar? Sound like Bernie Madoff?
Yeah, kind of.
So SVP or whatever, now how they're called, that bank, okay, and in Silicon Valley. How do you justify giving out performance bonuses 3 days before you file for bankruptcy? I don't know, buddy.
Yeah, well,
it's a scam. Now, let's say TD closes tomorrow. They file for bankruptcy, and I got my mortgages with TD and my line of credits with TD. Is my debt written off? Who do I pay?
Oh,
you know my
no,
debt's not written
your
off.
debt won't be written off. It'll be picked up, you know, that'll be sold off to another creditor, and then you'll have to pay them. That's why
Exactly.
SVB is being sold, right? It's like, what's to buy? The bank is bankrupt. Well, they're not really bankrupt. They still have assets, and those assets are your debts. So they sell those off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? So in order for all the debt to be sold off, or in order for me to break free from my mortgages and line of credit, every bank in the country would have to go belly up. And then who would you be paying at the end of the day? I bet the government would step in then.
Yeah.
Right? I call it the total reset.
Well, whoever buys it will buy that debt for a fraction of what the original value was. So they'll buy up, they're basically buying your house for pennies on the dollar, but you still have to pay full price to them.
Exactly. I'm just going to do a couple shout outs here. We got Cindy, Steve Harvey. Is it really Steve Harvey? The real Steve Harvey? COVID Warrior, House, DK, Pissed Off Dragon. We got them all watching tonight. But watch very carefully, folks, because the next couple of days are crucial for the economy. Okay, and I say that we're laughing because we got 26 new machines on the way, and the company I work for, they're like, you know, they want this done by June. And I told my boss today, I highly doubt shit's going to fly the way that they want with the way the economy is going to be going right now. You know, we just had this meeting last week too.
Yeah.
So I don't see it flying because I work for a multi-billion-dollar company out of New York City. Okay, and they hold all the funds in New York. And if things aren't going so well with the banks, it's not going so well with this company either, right?
Yep. It's not going to be that easy. It's going to be a lot harder in the next year well, things are just going to be rougher.
Right.
Yeah.
With the rising prices of food, okay, the rising prices of rent, can you keep up? You know, you need at least $30 an hour just to live week by week, my friend.
Yeah.
And if you're not making $30 an hour, well, you're on the cusp of bankruptcy, unfortunately.
Yeah. Where
$30 an hour 3 years ago, 4 years ago, you're living like a king. If you work the overtime, you made yourself $100,000 a year.
Yep.
Right. So the $100,000 a year today just don't cut it, my friend.
That's right.
and that's sickening. So
Thank you,
anybody
Leo.
under 100 grand, I really feel sorry. Thanks, Rick. I really feel sorry. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, sir. You have a great night. Okay, here's, I think it's Richard.
Hello, how you doing?
Good.
Maverick?
How are you tonight?
Pretty good. I watched your show last night, and you great. I'm calling from Alabama in the United States,
Hi there.
and I was wondering where is all the nuclear bomb shelters for the public? I looked on Google and I can't find none whatsoever.
Yeah, because they don't exist.
Why?
Well, that's a good question. I suppose because they couldn't build enough of them, for one thing.
What we gonna do when we have a nuclear war break out over here from Russia and China?
Sorry, I couldn't understand I couldn't hear the question.
If we had a nuclear war break out from Russia and China, what are we supposed to do here in the United States and Canada and all over the world?
They actually put videos out about that. There was the one that was getting a lot of play out of New York where they simply tell people to go inside and wait it out. That's kind of their approach or their advice. I think it's just giving people a false sense of security. I think that people have been living under the shadow of a possible nuclear conflict for so long that they have lost sight of the reality of it and how it would absolutely destroy everything that we know. So yeah. The reality is if that happens, if we ended up in a nuclear conflict, there's no place to go. You're just going to have to hope for the best and hope that you don't get hit and hope that the fallout doesn't get you.
Somebody will, won't they?
And it's going to be a struggle afterward. If you think you have supply chain issues now, wait until that happens. Then all bets are off, man.
My dad, he was in the war overseas somewhere, doing maintenance on their airplanes or something.
Well, it has to be avoided at all costs, man. That's why.
Yeah, I hope we don't go to no war or nothing like that. Yeah, we need peace.
Yeah.
I dream about that every night. So what's going to happen next day?
I don't know.
Well,
anyway.
I'll let you go. I know you got some more callers on the line.
Yes. Thank you very much for the call. Great to hear from you down there in Alabama.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great night. Okay.
All right, you too.
All right. Who do we have in the line now?
Hi, Rick. It's Steve now.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. I'm going to try and duck out of the wind here. Dog sitting and kind of chaotic at the moment. I was just listening to what Leo was saying about Polyev and trying to use the legal system to get out of the drug epidemic or whatever. When you were playing the Polyev video, my thought was Polyev doesn't know what he's talking about, and whoever's advising him is, using old tactics. I was in the field for more years than I like to talk about, and I'm kind of passionate about this topic. Don't want to take up your whole night. I could be here forever talking about it. But I mean, suing the drug companies, sure, if you want to recover some money, but it's way too late to have any effect doing that. That's come and gone, Polyev. Like, that's not where you're going to address it at. And arresting people and putting them in jail, that's not going to work either. I think for Canada, one of the biggest problems was Trudeau legalizing marijuana. And when he said he was going to run on that, I was astonished that anyone didn't object at the time. And at this point in my life, the only people I know that don't smoke pot are relatives. And I don't have any problem with it. I never have, but I don't have problems with people using drugs. trying to think of where to start with all this, because it's such a huge problem. He's not going to solve it in a hurry, and I wouldn't be able to explain all the aspects I have to it. But he was talking about not decriminalizing. At this point, I think one of the best approaches would be a form of decriminalization. And as much as I don't like the government getting involved in stuff, Vancouver has had some good ideas and has led the way in some areas, but I almost think the government has to inject itself now and actually legalize more drugs, more like kind of the LCBO operates. And, just one of the problems is when you restrict drugs, and I mean, this is the other thing. He said that they're getting it from pharma companies. Well, these days, with all the restrictions on doctors for prescribing, you're not getting too many people that are getting hooked because of their doctors so much, at least not on opiates. It's other drugs that, the doctors are pushing now, and they're equally as addictive. They're just different. But if you take people off of the drugs that they're used to, all you do is create the need to go underground, the need to go to the street to get them. And they'd almost be better off making low dose everything available to people and going that route so that people could be comfortable. The problem is when people go to the street, quite often they get spiked drugs and they get way more than they were expecting. And that's how you get your overdoses so regularly. It's not because they were looking to OD. Some people are pushing the limit all the time, but most people aren't looking to push the limit. They want to be comfortable, and they have a hard time doing that. And it's gotten so expensive. Some people opt for the stronger drugs thinking that's the cheaper route to go. And this is just fraught with problems. But Poilievre's route, my point is, will not work. I've seen people apply such tactics before to no avail. Anyway, I guess I've said more than I expected I would.
No, that's good. That excellent comments, and greatly appreciate that perspective, because you obviously have some experience and knowledge.
Yeah, I got out of the business. I kind of lost my faith. I saw directions with the government that I just couldn't cooperate with anymore, and it became too political and paperwork heavy. And I'm like, this is not benefiting anyone, and it's only going to get worse from here.
Right.
And so I sought other type of work. I mean, I wasn't strictly. I mean, that was my mainstay, was dealing with people that had drug problems. I've worked in every venue you can imagine, but or treatment center, treatment program you can imagine. But I did other work too, other counseling and stuff, and had quite a career from one side of the country to the other. And drugs was always like 80% of my work. So, and that was the other thing. When I first got into it, everybody was switching to crack, and then I'll tell you, opiates was the only drug that people left crack for, in my experience. And trying to get someone free of that it was so hard. And at one point, actually, they were using methadone to treat people that were on crack, and there was only one doctor prescribing. And I argued with him about how dangerous this was. And now that town is so overwhelmed with opiate abuse. Actually, there was an investigation from the Ontario government there that focused on that town because they thought there had to be something wrong. They thought the doctors had to be involved in it because it was such a rampant problem. Anyway, so there was a large investigation. I didn't find out about it until well on its way, almost at the end of the investigation. But anyway, so yeah, it's a huge issue. And like I said, I could talk for hours through experiences and what my philosophy would be. But I think the old tested methods just aren't capable of coping. And, and the other aspect of doing some type of legalization is you'll eliminate the need for drug smugglers, which would also eliminate the need for all the illegal guns. So there's kind of a spin-off benefit. If you don't have to have all these traffickers flooding across the border, and if they don't need to be armed because they don't have any business to protect anymore, it really cuts that down.
Well,
so anyway, there's a ton of aspects that need to be considered before you can spout off, in a 5-minute speech about how you're going to solve this problem. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. It's complicated, and the drugs on the streets today are more powerful than ever too. So the addictions are that much harder for people to deal with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, like I said, I think a lot of people just want to be comfortable. The pain management people, they just want to be comfortable. If you take away their access to being comfortable, what are they going to do? If they have to turn to the streets, who knows what they're going to get? And if it's cheaper to buy a stronger drug, they run higher risks and a greater addiction. And doctors out there need to explain to their patients, hey, if you're feeling high, that's not the purpose here. You need to be feeling comfortable. And I don't think that's well explained either. You're not supposed to feel high when you get a drug from a doctor. You're supposed to, mitigate symptoms or illnesses, not go on a trip. And that's not well explained. So I think there's a whole lot of blame to be passed around here, but anyway.
Excellent.
It's not about blaming, it's about solving the problem.
That's
all right. Thanks, Rick. Appreciate the time.
Great call. Thank you. Okay. I think we're going all the way to British Columbia. Hello,
Hey,
sir.
how you doing, my man?
Good. How are you, Al?
Awesome. Well, as far as the Polyev thing goes, dude's just all political talking points, just like Trudeau. We're just going around and around in the same damn cycle all over again. Does not everybody remember the last time this happened? The banks bought everybody, or the government bought everybody out of the last fucking housing crisis we near had. Jeez. Like, this is just history repeating itself, right? And all we have are global terrorists who are also domestic terrorists because they're terrorizing their own people economically.
Yeah, I can see that.
So that's what I had to say about it. Just basically reiterating what I had to say last time I was on when you was my bartender, remember? No, yeah. But it's just really, it's all the same bullshit, right? Like if you look at it, it's all coming down the same pipe.
Yes. But what are we going to do, man?
It doesn't matter.
So what's the option in the next election then?
Well, honestly, I honestly think mass fucking strikes is where it's at. It's got to be a national strike. It's got to be a national fucking effort. We need to get those freedom festivals going, like we talked about. Mm-hmm. We need to get people on the right track. Because this government is an absolute tyrant, and they are not going to stop, period. So thinking that they're going to stop and then we're going to finally be okay someday, forget it. And do you think really Poilievre's going to win the day for us when he gets in? The guy needs a fucking omnibus bills to reverse everything Trudeau did just on his first day in office. It'll take him 8 years to undo everything Trudeau did in 8 years. If not 16. So he's not going to save us. He's no savior. He's just another Pied fucking Piper from fucking 20 years ago. Same new rendition of the same old story. New face to the same old song. Right? This is history repeating.
So what are we talking about?
The banks have been doing this every 10 years. We go through like a crash, a financial fucking issue.
Okay, but
7 to 10 years.
Say we get the freedom festivals going and the people out, on strike, and even if we have a focused message and telling the government what is wanted, at the end of the day, mm-hmm. we still need the government to enact that or do that. So
to enact it. That's right.
Right. So how do we get to that point?
Yeah. Well, there's no easy fucking answer, right? There's no easy answer. But the thing is we're not even fully united in Canada. And I hate that word because of all the rest of the garbage going on. Yeah. But we're not singularly focused. I guess things just got to get like I said before, right? Every government is only 9 days of starvation away from falling.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see what you know? How many, like every day that I'm alive now, since I took the pill, I just find out another country where we're helping in the coup of that country.
Mm.
Like we have like these think tanks too, just like the States.
Yeah.
Going down there, setting up fucking the color revolution. Like I just heard one yesterday. You know, like it's every day that I'm alive, I learn of another coup that we're involved in.
Well, Melanie Jolie,
This is ridiculous. We used to be the good guys, dude. We used to be the good guys.
Well,
what happened?
I don't know, because like our Melanie
Globalist
Jolie, foreign
motherfuckers.
affairs minister, right? She just stated within the last day that her objective is regime change in Russia. Just outright saying it.
Like it's any of your damn business, Jolie.
Right.
How about you keep your fucking nose in your own fucking panty drawer?
Well, just mind our own
I'm
business.
sick of these globalist BS's bastards. Wow. Fat bastards. They're everywhere.
Yeah, I just...
Jeez, I don't even know what to say. They're globalists. Like they're globalist terrorists.
We're in Ukraine to fight for Ukrainian sovereignty and democracy.
Democracy.
And it wasn't supposed to be about regime change in Russia, but now it is. I said that from the very first day. I said that the real goal is regime change in Russia, and now they're not even hiding.
Yeah. You know, like completely, the entirety of Europe is now economically screwed. The entirety of Europe. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Economically screwed.
Yeah.
For what, 20, 30, 40 years? Who knows how long some of these countries are going to take to dig out of that hole, if Ukraine ever can. Right? They toppled all of Europe.
Yeah.
This is economic terrorists. They're economic terrorists, and they've been doing it to us slowly but surely. We're the frogs in the pot. We're getting ready for the boil, and then finally everybody's going to get focused.
Well, you know,
right? I'm not sure. See, that's the thing of it is, right? Sorry.
Ahead. No, you go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's just the delay.
I'm not sure. Like back to your question about like what can we do? I'm not really sure that there is anything that we can do except for show that we are focused as a country on our nation.
Yeah.
Not on maybe say a particular issue, but like on our nation and our own sovereignty, right? Because like I said, I don't know, a million times before, every one of Trudeau's failures, which he thinks are his successes, are but our successes. Because each one of those is what creates more of us to become more narrowly focused on the nation rather than just ourselves. Because everybody's stuck up in the whole, themselves.
Well,
how am I going to pay this bill? Get those groceries. How am I going to get this? How am I going to do that? Right? What do the kids need? What like it goes on. Life gets in the way, brother. Until I ended up on disability, I didn't have the time to learn all this. And I was just as blind as my neighbor.
Well, I do.
And now I talk to anybody about it, and I'm a freak.
I think that there are big changes coming over this next year. A lot of it is related to the return of sovereignty to First Nations. And
well, that's a scary unit. That's a scary arrangement, that one to me.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to think. Like, how far can they put, like, the UN was in our country, dude? These are the global terrorists visiting us.
Yeah, I just showed you that UN representative here 2 or 3 nights ago, and he's reviewing everything that is happening with UNDRIP and the return of sovereignty to First Nations, and I don't think that the approach they're taking is really going to lead. It's going to lead to conflict in some way or another. It's already.
Oh yeah, it's not. It's all divisive.
Yes. It's
all divisionary in its design. I see how that is. It's the hot knife through butter in Canada. They've figured it out. The Soros and all those all the globalists. They've been working on this shit for years, eons, like generations. It's unbelievable, and it's still going.
Yeah.
Which is even more unbelievable. You think they would have woke up and said, "Hey, you know what? These guys they're not half bad guys," But no, they never did. They just kept at it. You know what I mean? So yeah, no, but I think basically every one of Trudeau's failures is going to be our victory in the long run, right? Like that's, I think, the way it plays out. But like, what can we actually do? All we can do is just try to get other people focused on what they need to be focused on. Just create more awareness at the most. Or at least that's what we can do individually, right? And then, like things like this bank, let's see how this goes. Because like when this whole thing in Ukraine started, I said, oh, fuck, there goes Germany, there goes Europe, like all those house of cards, the economics of these houses is going to fall. And then I summed that up and I said, I dare not to risk how far those dominoes are going to fall.
Mm-hmm.
And now here we got the bank going in the States, right? They went and, like you said, seized a few up here. Is that the start of the fall? Everybody's got white knuckles over it.
Well, I kind of look at this whole thing in a bit of a different way. I think that there has been an ongoing war since World War II that people have not been aware of. And if you really look at what NATO has been doing, they've been taking over countries one after another without actually firing a shot.
Oh, exactly.
Simply by bringing them under the NATO umbrella.
Yep. See, they're the global terrorists.
Yeah.
And this is what I also learned. I'm not looking at it any differently than yourself, but that's what I'm saying. That's what I've learned, is that we are actually the global terrorists. Somehow or other, the script flipped.
Yep.
And I agree with you. I think it was right from World War II, because they have been going in and out of every country ever since. And look at Macron getting booed the other day. Look at the rudeness on that man.
Yeah.
Wow. He's saying this to a country he's trying to maintain control over.
Yeah.
He's insulting them so that he can maintain that control.
So like you, my friend, I found the enemy, and the enemy is us.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? It's unbelievable. Like, that's the hardest part of this whole pill.
Yeah.
When you swallow it, that's going to be the hardest part, is that wake up, because I never dreamed that Canada would be the bad guy.
Yeah.
I never dreamed it. But yeah, I had to succumb to the reality, right? I'll take truth over anybody's lie any day.
Yeah.
Any day. Yeah. It rocked my boat. And like, dude, I grew up standing to the national anthem every hockey game. Okay. I would stand there at attention, literally every hockey game. I watched a hockey game now, and I'm an old guy, and I got tears in my eye when they sing it. And then the crowd goes, and I cry harder. Like, I'm an old man. I shouldn't be crying like a baby, right? That's how much I love my country. And then I woke up.
Yeah.
Then I fucking woke up. It was like a brick flipping wall. I used to go down to the parades in Toronto Square, the big Massey Hall Square there. They used to do the big military parades when I was a kid. I was all about the military and the nation, everything about our country. And in 8 years, this man has torn the shit out of it, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Maybe I'm a little naive, but I still have hope. I still want to work toward getting us back to the right place. I think we can.
Well, I'm your forever optimistic realist, is the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Because I'm eternally optimistic, but I'm a realist in what's going on right now on the ground in front of me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, like, I think the like good times are coming, but probably not while I'm on the planet. Like, I think the good times will be. Look, financially, we're screwed. As soon as they signed that $500 billion bill for COVID, That very moment, I watched them push it through, and I said, the train has left the station for Canada.
Yeah.
That very moment, I knew it was screwed. You can't put that much money into our economy. Terrorists. Domestic, globalist terrorists. We've got them right here at home, Canada, and they are raping us as we speak.
Well, we better move
Okay,
on.
my brother.
Thank you.
Well, thanks
Thank
again
you.
for serving one up and forwarding me the chair.
My privilege. Thank you, sir.
We'll talk again. Take
You
care.
betcha. See ya. Okay, let's move on to Brenda. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Wow, first time caller. I can't believe I got through. This is exciting. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You go ahead.
All right. I just wanted to talk about what Pierre was saying about holding the drug companies responsible for the drug crisis. I think that there's a lot of responsibility for the drug crisis from China, if I'm allowed to say that. I don't know. Back in 2018, 2019, I was trying to get my head around that. And, back in the late 90s, I lived in Vancouver. I've seen it firsthand, what's happening with the fentanyl. It's just ridiculously worse, because of what the drug is. And, I started watching some of these videos. ADV China was a big channel I watched. And there are a couple of expats living in China. They're not living there anymore. And researching the opium wars, it's really hard to see what's happening here and not see some parallels to what was going on in the opium wars. And I think that, we think that this is a horrible thing to do to people, but they don't have that same kind of moral wheel, I guess. So it's like, well, you can sue Purdue, who is already being sued in the States, but the fentanyl is still coming in from China, and that's my 2 cents, I guess.
All right, great call and very valid. Yeah, we do know that a lot of the fentanyl comes from China. No doubt about it. It's a fact. So.
Yeah, and again, looking back at how China dealt with, how did they solve the issue of the opium addiction in their country back then, and I don't think we can do the same thing. But I certainly think, I think what Alberta's doing in terms of treatment, as many people have said, you never start an AA meeting by taking a shot. And, it's not government provided like top shelf, scotch or anything. Like, the idea is to get off the drugs. And sometimes you need medical intervention, but you can't just, be giving them the drugs. It just it just slows the process of dying. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the call tonight. I hope you call back.
All right. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. All right. Let's move on to John. John, what's going on?
Rick, I'm looking at this bright star on the west, and I can't figure out what it is. It doesn't show up on my radar. I don't know. I've been trying to figure it out for days now. I don't know. Someone can. I know it's Pisces. It's Pisces. I see Pisces, but I don't. Anyways, don't worry about that. It's not a UFO. That's for sure.
No.
It's not moving.
Interesting.
You know what day it is today?
Barely. I think it's Tuesday.
Pi Day.
Pi Day.
3.14.
Oh, like
March
pi.
the 14th. 3.14.
Can you name the rest of the numbers in pi?
I need a calculator.
Can
I always
anybody?
use
Can
3.14.
anybody? Can you get to the end of pi?
That's a long number.
It is a very long number. How long is it, John?
I don't know. You need a calculator.
No, it's not going to help you. Well, it might help you to a point. It's infinity. It goes on forever. Never stops.
Oh, is that right? Eh? That's something I didn't know.
Yeah.
Somebody's going. Yeah, 33333. It never stops.
Never stops. It doesn't stop.
That's. Is that why they call it pi, or I don't know. That's a weird. I use it a lot because in my business I have to use pi.
And you were mentioning that star, and a friend of mine who shall remain nameless this evening, because I don't know if she wants her name used. I just sent her a message yesterday. She responded back and said this, and this is kind of related to your star. She says, Pluto enters Aquarius on March 23rd. Massive shift incoming. Last time Pluto changed signs was in 2008, last financial crisis, when it entered Capricorn. This is when we saw the stock market crash. That's right, the housing market crashed. I hope all is well with you, she says. So you can put as much stock in that as you want, but if you're into numerology or astrology, then maybe that will resonate with you.
But I don't see Pluto there. I see Jupiter and Mars.
Well, I don't think you're going to see Pluto with your naked eye. Pluto's a little bit far away and a little bit too small.
But look how bright it is. When you walk your dog, check it out tonight. It's really, really bright.
And where is this star? Where do I have to look for it? In the west. So I look up, west. And is it where would it be in relation to the Big Dipper?
Yeah, west. Yeah, that's west. That's west. Yep. West.
I'll have to look for it.
So, Pi Day, yeah. Polyev, I don't like him either, but I don't like no politicians, but whoever you like doesn't stand a chance. The only guy is Polyev, and he is fiscal conservative. That's what I do like about him, which Trudeau's got nothing, doesn't even know what that word means. Fiscal conservative.
Yeah.
So
Trudeau's a modern monetary theorist. That's what he is. He thinks that you can just print money. The budget will balance itself. That's his approach to economics.
That's what he said. And happy skies. What else did he say?
Sunny ways.
Sunny ways.
Sunny ways.
That guy's a tool in the barn. Yeah. Another interesting fact, all you people out there, water bottles. A lot of people I don't use water bottles. I just buy a bottle of water and throw it out. But they're saying that water bottles hold more bacteria than a toilet seat.
Come on.
Did you know that? So I'm telling you, wash them really good.
What do you mean water?
They hold more bacteria than a...
Oh, for crying out loud. Move on. Don't want to talk about it. Grosses me out, and I don't think it's true.
Okay. Now, another interesting fact is chip bags.
Chip bags?
You think there's air in there? Yeah. Everybody thinks there's air in there. That's not air. It's nitrogen. They fill the chip bags with nitrogen so they don't go stale.
Huh?
Did you know that?
Didn't know that. I don't.
By the way,
true? Oh, yeah, could be.
What's your favorite pie?
Like to eat, or my mathematical equation? I'm split. It depends. It's either going to be apple or pumpkin.
Well, number one answer is apple. Number two is lemon meringue. I like pumpkin myself.
Yeah, lemon meringue's okay, but it's full of a lot of too much sugar, and I think apple pie is healthier for you, and pumpkin pie too, for that matter. But
yeah. One guy called in about bunkers. Move to Sweden. Sweden's got the biggest nuclear bunkers in the world.
Oh.
They built all these bunkers for the people because of Russia. They figured Russia was going to nuke them,
Yeah.
And right now, I think they just use them for parking lots or something. I don't know, but they still have them. They're still there. They're underground bunkers. Biggest bunker. You can Google that. It's a fact.
Yeah. Well,
these banks.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I
These
want to hear what
banks-
you have to say. You go.
Okay, the banks. I'm telling you. This is a big scam. It's a scam. I don't trust these Wall Street brokers, and they're a bunch of crooks.
Yeah.
I follow the stock market very closely. And a pin drop, the market goes crazy.
Yeah.
They just drop it like 10% for the day, and then it goes back up again.
Yeah.
Somebody's making a lot of money from the stock market. That's what it's designed
Always.
for. But I think these banks are going to go up like crazy, 20% up. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm buying everything right now because I know the market's going to go up. I got the gut feeling that it's going to go up. This is just a game they're playing.
How much are the banks down right
I don't
now,
know what
John? How much did the banks lose today, or did they lose any more today? I haven't had time to really check the current pricing.
No, today they're all up.
Yeah.
Today they're up. But I can tell you, let's see here. Where the hell are the banks here? I got so many I'm following here. Here we go. Like Royal Bank, for instance, it's only down 4.5% for the year. JP Morgan is up 20% for the year.
Yeah. For the year? It's up 20% for the year?
For the year, yeah. Yeah. The banks are they're not going to fold. The banks are the best stock. If you got a lot of money, you're best to put it in bank stocks right now. Good banks. I'm not talking about getting.
No, I think you would have been better to put it in there this morning.
Well, yesterday. Yeah, they're all up today.
Yeah.
Yeah, yesterday I did. I bought Royal Bank. That's the only bank I bought, and I usually buy JP Morgan, but JP Morgan is too high right now. So, but I like JP Morgan. I like Royal Bank.
I'm not sure. See, I think it's all still very volatile. So let's get a woke perspective on this from Yahoo News. Hang on a second here. Sorry, John. Hang on. I lost you on the feed here. There we go. So that's back. Oh, no, it's not. That's not where we want to go. Hang on. I'm going to bring you back. You're off the screen. Now you're back, and now I need to add this. There we go. Excuse me. I sneezed, but let's watch this and find out what they think, because it says the stocks did rebound today, which I sort of expected because people always see the buying opportunity, but I still think the market is extremely volatile. And I think we could see more slippage in the days ahead. It rebounds today and then probably back down tomorrow or the next day.
All right, let's take a look at some of the stocks that are trending after hours. We've got to talk about the regional banks. First Republic Bank, Charles Schwab, Zions Bank, Bancorp have really been on the move the last several days following the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank last Friday, and then also what we saw at Signature Bank over the weekend. First Republic Bank closing off the last 2 days, a loss of 67%. Even today, we were looking at a loss of nearly 62%. That five-day chart really illustrating the downward slope that we have certainly seen, at least in extended trading, recouping some of those earlier losses, really just a fraction of it. We're seeing similar pressure in Charles Schwab. Now, over the last 5 days, that stock off just about 32%, closed today off just around 11.5%. So pairing some of the steeper losses that we saw during the intraday trading after the bank did come out defending its portfolio, trying to reassure some of that skepticism that's out there from investors. In extended trading, we're looking at gains of just about 1%, and Zions was off 25% today, moving slightly to the upside in extended trading. Of course, these are all among our top trending tickers here at Yahoo Finance. That has been the case for at least the last 24 hours. Likely will be the case going forward here as the fallout and we work through some of the latest headlines and pertains to Silicon Valley Bank and also Signature Bank. So very important stocks to keep an eye on here. Let's also talk about United Airlines. Switching gears here just a bit, the company out with updated guidance, and we're seeing the disappointment reflected in extended trading with the stock off just over 6%. The company now says that it sees its Q1 adjusted EPS loss of 60 cents to $1. One of the reasons for that, some of the expenses related to a new collective bargaining agreement with Airline Pilots Association. Originally, they were expecting that charge in the second quarter. They moved that up to the first quarter. That's why we're seeing the stock under pressure, off just about 6.5% because of that revised loss per share outlook from United for the current quarter right now. The company, though, is saying that it does still see strong demand environment, now expects Q1 operating revenue to be up about 51% compared to the level that we saw during Q1 2022. But that movement forward here from the quarter for its new collective bargaining agreement, the expenses there dragging the results potentially lower here in the current quarter. That's why the stock's off nearly 7%.
So, thoughts, John, Mr. Stock Market Guy? Oh, hang on a sec. I lost you again. Don't talk yet. I have to bring you back up on the screen. Here we go. There you are. You're back. Okay. So,
yeah.
What? Hang on. Where are you going here?
You ever get the feeling that people are playing with us? Like
Yeah,
the government,
all the time. Every
airlines,
day.
and
yes, of course
they're playing with us.
Yeah.
You ever get that feeling?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, I do, and I don't like it. And you know, someone deserves a broken nose. I don't know, man, but playing games like that. But this is what's going on, and these banks, they're tanking them because people are buying, and then they sell them and make a profit. Every year it happens to bank around in January, February, March. They tank them. It's profit taking. They got to make a buck. Greed. And so, anyways, all I'm saying is,
what you're saying
right
is
now
they
is a good
manipulate
time
the
to get in.
prices on purpose.
That's right. Right
So-
now,
because
right
they
now-
control the
right now.
market. That's what I said yesterday. When you're really, 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 really rich, when you're a billionaire, you can control stock market prices just by talking. People listen to you. The media listens to you. If you
That's
say,
right.
I think this stock sucks, and it'll drop like a rock, and then you go in and you buy it. And you
Everybody
say,
sells.
I was kind of
Everybody
wrong
sells.
about that. I kind of like it now. And then it goes back up and you make a fortune. But there are actually laws against
You know,
doing
I'm
that
wa-
sort of thing, but they do it all the time.
I'm watching all these banks. They're cutting all these big investors. They're all cutting the target price. Like every bank's got a target price, like it's going to hit, right? And they're all cutting the target price. And then next week they're going to raise the target price, just like you said. They got to go. Oh no, you made a mistake. It's going to go through the roof. Get it. But it's too late to get in because it's already up 10, 15%. You know. You know.
Well,
I'm you know, we're being played with anyways. Everything, not just the stock market, everything that's going on. But I don't know. Right now, you have to vote for somebody next election. Hopefully, it's going to be by the fall before. And I'd rather have a fiscal conservative guy in there than someone who's just gives our money away to everybody. You know.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
think Poilievre's going to give our money away.
not to the same degree.
I don't think-
He will, but not to the same level at all.
Not the same degree.
Yeah.
Everybody, like, I'm telling you guys, everybody out there, don't forget to go to H&R Block and do your taxes because Ukraine depends on it. You know?
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Do you want to know
Don't
what
forget.
I'll show you why, we do have a fighting chance in the West to survive this economic disaster. This is why, right here. You see this? Can you see that? This is a Concours d'Elegance. These cars are worth like insane amounts of money. And this is, you know, a different world than most.
That's British. Looks British.
I don't know this one. I'm not sure which Concours this is, but
it's British.
You know, the collector car market is
nice
like
color.
Like the people who own cars like this. It's a different world, right? And we in the West do have immense amounts of wealth. It just depends on what we do with it and how it's distributed. And I don't want to sound like a socialist. I'm just saying that there is money out there. And the amounts of money that some of these people have. And when you look at even the office towers, the value of real estate in major U.S. cities or in Canada, you walk down Bay Street and you look up at the buildings, you know, like the amount of money that's out there that's available.
Yeah, because they're ripping us off.
Yeah, well,
where do they get that money? Where do they get that money from? The bottom feeders.
Yeah.
That's why the stock market's tanking.
They
need a new boat, a new car.
The wealth is there. It's just if it really needed to be had. But you can wipe the value of these things away with poor economic policies, right? Where the bad monetary policy just gets the economy to a place where people can't afford to buy things because they're not liquid. It's kind of complicated, but what I'm saying is there's a lot of wealth built into, like there's equity built into a lot of these assets, whether it's an old car like this or an office tower in a downtown area. But if the economy isn't managed properly, you can make the value of an office tower in New York City go, you know, tank and be worth 10% of what it really is. So that's why you have to have proper economic management. With macro.
Well, I learned something from the chat lines today. Yeah. Sorry, the chat lines. They were talking about growing your own vegetables this year, eh?
Yeah.
Every year I grow vegetables and the squirrels and birds, and they all eat them all. So they said to build a fence. I don't know if a fence is going to work, but I do know there's certain vegetables that nobody eats, like beans. Last year I had all these I love cucumbers.
Yeah.
I had like 5 rows of cucumbers. You know how many I got out of it? Maybe 3, because I think I got rabbits around here, man. They're gone. The cucumbers. As soon as they're like a couple inches long, they're gone, man. I don't know who's eating them all, but it ain't me. You know, tomatoes. The only thing was good was the beans. Nobody touched the beans.
Yeah.
But
well, I see the Home Hardware near me has a sign up. You can buy your seeds for your garden to grow your own vegetables, and people keep talking about that. But like you, I planted a vegetable garden one year, and the animals came and ate it all. So I was just feeding the wildlife. With my garden.
That's what you're doing, feeding the wildlife.
Yeah.
But the beans, if you like beans, they don't touch the beans. That's the only thing I had no problems with was the beans.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes you got to water it, you got to trim it.
Yeah.
A lot of work, man. So you're better off just going to buy it.
Well, around here we have a lot of rabbits.
Go broke.
We have a lot of rabbits around here, so I think they nibble away at the carrots and the things like that. So
my cat grabbed a rabbit once and brought it in the house, and I'm looking at it, and I go, "What the hell are you doing?" And the rabbit jumped like 6 feet all the way out the door, and went in a hole where my garden was.
Yeah.
So but he's not there. I don't think he's there anymore. Well, actually, I seen him last year. Yeah, I seen him walking around the garden there. Yeah. I got rabbits. But
well, listen, John, we're going to wrap it up for the night, my friend.
Yeah. We'll talk to you again, and nice show. Good show, actually.
Yeah.
It was a good show tonight.
Thank you, John.
Again. Yeah.
Pleasure.
We'll talk to you later.
You betcha, my friend. Catch you on the flip side. See you.
Okay.
Okay, guys, that gets us to, well, we're almost to 9:30. So I'm sorry I've got a bunch of other calls in the queue, but I have to address some other things around here tonight before I go to bed. So more work to be done. And I have to take my dog out to visit the rabbits in the neighborhood too before I go to sleep. So he's very demanding that way. So I do apologize. Can't get through the rest of the calls this evening. I do try to get through them all before we sign off, but just not gonna happen tonight. If you haven't liked, shared, subscribed, please consider doing that. It really helps us. Even if you just smash the like button, it helps defeat the algorithm and gets us up in the search engine rankings. And that helps the channel immensely. Make sure you hit the notification bell if you do subscribe on YouTube. Please consider subscribing over on Rumble and like and share on Facebook. That helps us out a great deal as well. You can support the channel at freedomreporters.com. That takes you to the PayPal donation page. That's honestly for us probably the best way for you to donate. Just go to that URL, freedomreporters.com, and that helps us out immensely. You can also donate at Maverick Donations through the Give, Send, Go page over there if you're more comfortable doing that. So that's always an option. And for those of you who have donated in the chat this evening and before, thank you. Greatly appreciate your help. The money that comes in helps us fund the operation. Wouldn't be possible without it. We don't have any other sponsors. It's strictly you guys supporting what we're doing here with this work. And there are expenses to be covered, like the phone system, the subscriptions, the software, the hardware, the whole operation. Even Rumble charges a fee for us to be on there. So there's more going on than meets the eye. It's not that simple to keep us operational. But you guys make it possible. Thank you, everyone, very much for spending the time here tonight. I will be back tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.